I'm like, yeah, we could just.
Great. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. It is our regularly scheduled city council meeting for the city of Glenwood Springs. The date is May 16th, 2024. We will go
Mayor.
ahead. We'll do roll call.
Mayor Wuzo,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Dame,
Here.
Counselor Godis,
Here.
Counselor Zelinski,
Present.
Counselor Weimer,
Here.
Counselor Kaup. We have a quorum.
With that in mind, I'll move on to item number 7, which is agenda changes and conflicts. It sounds like we have a handful. Counselor Zelinski.
I propose that we remove item C from the consent agenda to a future date to be determined.
Perfect. We'll do yep. Counselor Kaup.
And I would like to remove.
Oh, wait, hold on. We need to actually do a vote on that one.
Okay.
So let's see.
Second?
Counselor Dem.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes unanimously. And then it also sounds like Counselor Kaup has a motion as well.
I just would like to pull off item B off of consent. It has to do with the 3 Mile Creek, just for some clarification on what we're actually
Okay.
approving tonight, because
Yeah,
wasn't
perfect. We will go ahead and move that right below between item 21 and 22, the last item before the report from city manager.
great. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Counselor Godis.
I have a twofer.
Oh, I don't think we need to vote on that because we're moving it to the consent, to the regular. Okay, go ahead.
I would ask that, I'll make a motion. It's a 2-part motion. One, that we, in light of some guests that we have here, that we move item number 21, ordinance of City of Glenwood Springs amending 070 regarding allowed uses and minimum lot standards. Let's maybe move that after Southbridge update, so folks don't have to wait around for the whole meeting.
Perfect. Yep. Great. All those in favor? Oh, that's motion 1, which is.
That's motion
fine.
1.
Yeah,
Alright.
that's
okay.
fine. That doesn't need a vote.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if everybody's okay with
Yeah.
that, then I think the second one is, we had a work session earlier and there just did not seem to be any support for having a conversation about allowed uses, which would be the duplex conversation. So I don't mind having the conversation about if we want to talk about minimum lot standards. We haven't talked about that a whole lot, but it seems like there wasn't any support for that. So I would make the motion that we remove any conversation about duplexes, upzoning, or allowed uses. That we table it indefinitely.
I'll look for a second.
I second.
Okay. Any discussion before I call the question?
I think I would just say that means for everybody here that wants to weigh in on duplexes or anything else, we will not be discussing that tonight at all in any way, shape, or form. So.
Or in the near future.
Or in the future.
And we'll just kind of give a quick background is that, we are listening to the community, and our feedback from the community is that while this went through an extensive process, Housing Commission, a grant from professionals, and planning and zoning, it came to us and we digested it and we looked into it, and we feel as though the climate in the community right now is not interested in discussing duplexes and changing the current zoning to allow those. So with that in mind, and we had quite a few suggestions from planning and zoning, the only item we will be discussing this evening, changing to the zoning code, will be lot sizes. So you're more than welcome to stay for that discussion if you're here for, any part of it. And we will go ahead and call the question.
We're missing one.
No.
Sumner's not here.
Sumner's not
Sumner's
here.
No. It passes 5-1.
Great. Let's go ahead then. We'll go back to this. So I'll go ahead and confirm there are no additional agenda changes or conflicts. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Then I'll go ahead and look for any council announcements. Does anyone have any announcements? This is always kept for upcoming events and just a little highlighting. No? Okay. Then I will go ahead and open it, item number 9 up to citizens appearing before council. As a reminder, this is for items that are not on our agenda. So if you would like to take 3 minutes to speak about items that are not on this evening's agenda, please head up to the podium. Mr. Richard Todd. 3 minutes, and just let us know if you're in city limits. Do you live in
Yes,
city
it's
limits?
Richard Todd and I live at 616 Cowden Drive.
Okay.
Only going to keep 1.5 minutes, I think. Basically, I wanted to make a point. I went to a really good meeting on the 11th of April and Shelley was there and Sumner was there.
Mhm.
And it was extremely well organized and the subject matter is run by the Colorado Mountain College and very well facilitated. And there must have been 150 people there. The great thing about it was they got people involved in talking to each other
Mhm.
and talking on various subjects. And the bottom line was that I thought, my goodness, wouldn't it be great if the council ran something like this? Because it would be possible then for people to try and understand what it is that you're trying to do. Because at the moment, just as central government is divided, I don't think we should be divided in local government. And when I have division, I mean divided between the councillors who have a plan, which we don't really understand, and ourselves who, get concerned when the bulldozer turns up. So I understand that it's very difficult to get everybody involved, but that particular event struck me that if we could do something like that, it would make all the difference in the world. And I'm sure you guys up there who probably get frustrated when we have to have another ballot on something that you've decided about, would much appreciate getting the feelings of the people who elected you to your positions.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lee. Didn't take my 3 minutes.
Any additional comments this evening?
My name is Gary Vick. I live at 614 Cowden, and this will just be very brief. I'd like to just start by saying that no one besides you guys works harder for less pay and spends more time to make the city a better place, and we appreciate that. We don't always say it, but we're grateful that you do this job. I had intended to speak to you later about listening, but it seems that you already have. So I appreciate that. And thank you for, do I understand correctly that item 21 has now been tabled indefinitely? Is that correct?
I think to clarify, item 21 has been amended to remove discussion about the duplexes. We will continue to discuss the lot line adjustments to allow smaller lots.
Okay.
Standard
All
lot
right.
size
All right. Got it.
adjustments.
Got it. Thank you.
Any additional comments? Okay. Item number 10, this is a new item. This is called council reaction to public comments. And I guess with regard to our community comments just now, I will say that I love a full room. I love when people show up because it's only, we dedicate a lot of time to these positions. And as a reminder, we're community members serving as city councilors. I can name lists of people, there are some in the room who were previous city council members, who at that time gave hours of their time, their family time, and a commitment to learning how the community works. If we have failed the community in educating you about the things we know, we have committed ourselves to doing a better job. We have hired a communication firm that works specifically with municipalities so that we can better engage in a way that lets you know our why, which would still allow you to say you don't agree with our why. Civic engagement to me is the foundation of democracy. And I commend those who have shown up, and I commend those who speak up. One thing that I will ask, and I ask this truly for all of my colleagues up here on City Council, is that you show up with respect, and we will do the same. And so to Mr. Todd's comment, we want to hear what you have to say, but when out of the gate, we're marked as the villain, that makes it hard to engage because there's a lot of community members who don't show up and they hear through the grapevine a message when we don't have the opportunity, and we haven't done a great job of countering that. So if you all can start a new chapter with us and start genuine, authentic communication on how we move forward as a community, we would so greatly appreciate that. And it's an ask. We're asking for an opportunity for you to all engage with us in general mutual respect. So, thank you. Counselor Zelinski.
I just wanted to say thank you to Mr. Todd. I so appreciate it when people come with helpful suggestions and, like initiating conversation that like helps us, tells us what to do that we could do better rather than just telling us what we're doing wrong, with no like real kind of context for that. So I hope to see more of that. I received a number of correspondence over the last few weeks, and there were several that came forth that were very thoughtful. And I so appreciate that level of engagement. And I hope that we continue to hear from those voices that, we're inspired by an issue that they saw that, they felt passionate about to reach out to us. That shouldn't be the only time you talk. I hopefully will see more of that in the future to help us continue to move forward in a really purposeful way that does honor this community that we all really genuinely value. And so I just wanted to say thank you specifically to you and, express that I hope to see more of that.
Bring it back to council for an approval of the consent agenda. And as a reminder, whoever does it, just please address the items we pulled off. Councilor Dem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would move that we approve the consent agenda with item B moved out of the consent agenda to discuss, and item C moved to a future date.
Can you turn on your mic? Thank you.
Second that motion.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay. Proclamation. Yes.
Brian, is this police or fire?
I would love if you came.
Okay.
Please join us. Okay. Oh, Chief, I didn't even see you. Come on. Yeah. Come on up. Okay. Okay. Proclamation by the Honorable Ingrid Wusso, Mayor. I don't know if I'm supposed to read that part, but I just did. Whereas the Congress of the United States has designated May 15th of each year to be the Peace Officers Memorial Day, and the week in which May 15th falls as National Police Week. And whereas then are approximately 900,000 law enforcement officers serving in communities across the United States, including the dedicated women and men of the Glenwood Springs Police Department. And whereas the City of Glenwood Springs wishes to recognize National Police Week 2024 and honor the service and sacrifice of those law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty while protecting our communities and safeguarding our democracy. And whereas the names of these dedicated public servants are engraved on the walls of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial in Washington, D.C., and whereas 282 new names of fallen heroes are being added to the National Law Enforcement Memorial Wall this spring. And now, therefore, I, Ingrid Busso, Mayor of Glenwood Springs, and on behalf of the entire City Council, do hereby proclaim May 20th or 12th through the 18th, 2024 as Police Week in the City of Glenwood Springs, and publicly salute the service of law enforcement officers in the City of Glenwood Springs and in communities across the country. Thank you. Yeah, okay. Does anyone want to come up? Rod, do you want to come up? Anybody want to come up for, oh. Yeah, I know. Come on. Okay. This is a proclamation for Wildfire Preparedness Month, May 2024. Whereas 20 of Colorado's largest wildfires have occurred within the last 22 years, the 5 largest fires in state history have occurred since 2018. And whereas the most destructive fire in state history occurred just 28 months ago, almost doubling the amount of homes lost than the previous record. And whereas the top 5 most destructive fires in state history, measured by homes lost, have occurred since 2012. And whereas warmer temperatures, drought, and continued development in the wildland-urban interface have made wildfire mitigation a top priority for Glenwood Springs Rural Fire Department Protection District. And whereas Wildfire Preparedness Month is focused on encouraging residents to learn about wildfire safety and take steps to reduce wildfire risk in and around their homes. Now, therefore, I, Ingrid Busso, Mayor of the City of Glenwood Springs, do hereby proclaim May Wildfire Preparedness Month in the year 2024. And then it just says, in witness hereof, I have, yeah, but we don't need to do that part. So thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much. Here you go. We'll give it to you. Okay. We will bring it back to council for item 14, Shoshone. No. Are we doing that?
Yep.
Okay, Shoshone contribution. So I think that Andy Mueller might be coming up.
Good evening, council. My name is Andy Mueller. I'm the general manager at the Colorado River District, also a resident of Glenwood Springs at 1221 Bennett Avenue. We've talked with council in 2 work sessions about the Shoshone purchase, but we've been working with the city of Glenwood Springs, we at the Colorado River District, and over 20 other West Slope governmental entities have been working with the city of Glenwood Springs for decades to try to secure the flows that the Shoshone power plant water rights guarantee for our community. After decades of work, finally, on behalf of that coalition, the River District was able to sign a purchase and sale contract for those water rights in December. We have a number of contingencies in the contract, which we've given you great details on. But we're in the process of trying to raise commitments for funding from the public entities and the irrigation districts that have been part of that coalition. Our request made of the city of Glenwood Springs is a $2 million request. And understand that I apologize for missing the earlier work session today as I was stuck on Cottonwood Pass or on I-70 first and then Cottonwood Pass. Get over here. I understand the concerns that the city has tremendous other priorities, Southbridge among them. I also understand the look up and down the river at other governmental entities. And I would just ask the council to think about the unique position that the city of Glenwood Springs is in with relationship to the Shoshone water rights. The city of Glenwood Springs has a very unique economy that is largely tourism funded, and that tourism is generated in large part by several building blocks that you have. First among those building blocks is the reliability of the Shoshone flows that create the recreational amenity of the floating, the river rafting that occurs in this city. Many of our industries here depend upon the people who come to raft. It's not just the rafting companies, which, by the way, provide tremendous service to our community and employment, but it's the restaurants, it's the stores on Main Street and elsewhere throughout the community. It is the lodging and all the way through the community. It's all of those jobs. And from this city's own interests, it is the sales tax and lodging tax that enables this city to pave streets, to buy services from outside vendors, to frankly conceive of building Southbridge, to have that revenue generated that is generated by the river recreation. The fear that we have, and it is a well-founded fear, given recent history, is that that water right will go away if we don't secure it and turn it into an in-stream flow. That water will then be diverted at the headwaters of the Colorado River for benefit of eastern slope communities. Our community will be left high and dry. We will no longer have that reliable flow for our recreational economy. And you will find our city, or your successors, because it won't happen in your time, but our successors here in the city of Glenwood Springs will find that they don't have the money to pave the street right out in front of City Hall. And this is a unique situation among all of the cities and counties along the main stem of the Colorado. Many of them have stepped up, and I just want to point out a few. Ute Water Conservancy District, for instance, similar to Glenwood Springs, they don't take any water out of the Colorado River, but they who understand the importance of having clean, cold water for all of their constituents chipped in $2 million towards this purchase. They're a small entity. They do serve 55,000 people as utility, but they are not a large municipality. They are not a county. They are a government entity that understands the value of water. I think you understand the value of water, and I would encourage you to consider our request. I can go into great detail, as you all know, because you've heard me do it before. I won't do that tonight, but I would just encourage you, as you're considering our request, to not just think about this year's budget and this year's priorities, but 100 years from now, will this city have water flowing in the Colorado River? And will we have an economy that is based upon that river? And I would ask you to truly consider that $2 million request tonight. Thank you.
Bring it back to council for any questions for Andy, for staff. Any questions at all before we open it to public comment? Councilor Gotis.
Has Garfield County committed funds yet?
Garfield County has not committed funds yet. We believe that we will be on their June 3rd agenda to discuss this.
And what is the ask of them?
The ask of Garfield County today is $4 million.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions? With that, I will close that section for us and see if there's any public comment regarding this. So that's anybody from the public who would like to make a comment. 3 minutes, if you'll just come to the podium. Let us know your name and, and if you live in city limits.
Good evening, Mayor, councilors. My name is Paula Stepp, and I do live in the city of Glenwood Springs. And I do more than that. I belong to the Middle Colorado Watershed Council as the executive director. I'm on the Roaring Fork Wildfire Collaborative. I've helped develop the Colorado River Wildfire Collaborative, and I'm on the River Commission for the city of Glenwood Springs. So water, drought, all of that is my world. And I am here to encourage you to seriously consider what this investment is. The amount of money we're asking is not, or that the River District is asking is a sum that we all stop to consider, but it's an investment for an indefinite amount of time. It keeps our water here on the western slope. It takes care of us as we look at 20 years of drought behind us and a change to what we refer to as we are now living in an arid climate. There are so many reasons to keep our water here on this side, not only for the town of Glenwood, which I do agree that it's an economic benefit, but for all of Western Slope. There are so many debates going on right now, how to share our river water. And this will put us on the map of taking care of that water for a long time and keeping that stream flow. It takes care of our aquatics, our wetlands, our fish, our recreation, our towns, our agriculture. So I know just in my previous role as a city councilor that we look with great discernment at the money that people request, but this is an investment that won't go up in price. All it will do is become a better value as we look at our future history. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to comment this evening? Yes, please come up.
Good evening, Council. My name is Ken Murphy. Not a resident of Glenwood Springs, just outside, but a business owner here for the last number of years. I was initially going to come here and talk. I chair the Shoshone Partnership, which is the commercial outfitters that raft through Glenwood Canyon. I'm also the outdoor rec representative for the state of Colorado for all of outdoor rec. And I can tell you we are the envy of most of the state with what we have here. But listening, you already have the numbers, you know the economic value. I was thinking about what I was going to say when I was up here in front of you today. And I think this is a chance for you as a council to make a legacy decision. This is not about the economic value of right now, whether we can pave our streets tomorrow or whatever. This is a decision you're going to be remembered for from your great grandchildren. The fact that we've got water coming through the canyon. The water is the rafting is just one aspect of it. It's the scenic beauty. It's the flow of the river. No one wants it to be a stream. And the east, as it grows, and we have to take this into account, everybody wants to move to this state. Luckily, right now, they're moving to the eastern plains, all right? But that eastern plains are going to be at Front Range is going to be looking for water with this growth. And we have the water and they're going to want it. They may not want it now. And these guys have done a tremendous job of getting to this agreement. And this is your opportunity to put Glenwood Springs on the map as part of this decision for the legacy of the future of this town, whether it be for the future of rafting. That's a different subject. I think this is bigger than rafting. And here's your opportunity to have that lasting legacy and for your future of your families to say, you know, my so-and-so actually made a decision and rewarded funds for this sort of maintain water in the Colorado River. So anyway, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate everything you do. And
Thank you, Ken.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any additional comments? Yeah, come on up.
Hello again, Erica Gibson. I'm the chair of the River Commission. I also live in Glenwood Springs and am a water rights attorney, among other aspects. But here we've submitted on behalf of the River Commission, we've included a letter of support. Just would like to add this additional public comment for the benefit of the record. The River Commission, as you know, you've appointed us as representatives with interest in the river, water matters like engineering, water rights. As an attorney, we have rafters, we've got recreationalists, and we have leaders of other organizations. So we are, you've appointed us as a body of experts to help advise you as City Council in your decisions. And we have, as you know, discussed this and are in strong support of doing what you can to help this project be kind of finalized. I think we are not, as I've said to you before, we are not familiar with the budget or what you might be looking at in your decisions. I think where we come from is whatever you can do to ensure the success of this project. That's where we're coming from. If it is a matter of a groundswell where you're adding your voice and your stamp as this is our community and this is what we stand for, and then that brings others along, then we encourage that, you know, of course, at your discretion, but we, those are strong support.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Anyone else? Anyone online for this item? I'm going to close the public comment and bring it back to council for a motion. Councilor Coe.
You know, we had a work session earlier today talking about this, and I think it's not a question of whether or not the city supports it. The city absolutely supports it. And I think everyone who's worked on this for the last few decades knows the importance of this investment in the future of the Colorado River, not just for Glenwood Springs, but for the whole state and for the whole southwestern United States. You hear over and over how important the Colorado River is. So the issue that we have to decide tonight is what amount do we come in with at this point with our dedication and commitment to this. And we had some discussion at the work session, and, you know, do we come in at 1 million or 2 million? The request is 2 million. And I'm going to go ahead and make a motion for the 2 million, even though we talked in the work session about maybe coming in at 1 right now, and that if there's a gap in funding, you need to come back for that. But I think with the gravity of this investment right now and the future, it's not just a legacy for us, it's the future of the whole area and keeping water flowing past our city. And, you know, if we're willing to do the 2 million several months from now, why don't we just put our cards on the table right now and make the investment? So my motion is to fund the Shoshone water rights purchase at a level of 2 million from Glenwood Springs.
Okay. Councilor Godus, I see your light is on. Is that for a second? Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. And I'm gonna now allow comments. So we'll start with Councilor Zelinski.
So I have no need for a legacy. I just really recognize the value of this, and you know, something that Paula said really resonated. This is going to become more valuable every year. You know, it's even if this is just like a blip in time where, you know, we go into a drought and then we come out of a drought and this is just the life cycle of a planet. Or is it global warming? We don't know, right? We're just, you know, we can only look at the evidence that's before us. And right now, water is a scarcity. And we have this really unique opportunity to do something incredibly valuable for our community. And not just our community, but the whole river corridor. And so I think that's something that I take very, very gravely. And so I had a robust, if I didn't have the chance to second it, I would second it. I think this is a really, really amazing opportunity. As I heard tonight, it's more than 20 years in the making. And so I think that it's an honor to be able to vote on this and help, you know, put the last little whatever pin in the thing that makes it happen. So, you know, I think that I take that really, really gravely. And so I thank you all for all the work that you've done to get us here.
Councilor Dem.
Thank you. A quick question to Steve, if I may. I assume this is going to come out of reserves. What percentage, where do we keep our reserves at?
We try to keep somewhere between 40 and 50%.
Is that our current?
Yes.
Okay, so if we take the 2 million out, how long roughly does it take us to replenish?
We'd be close to 40 million at that point, or 40% at that point. So I think in the next couple of years, we should try to get back to where we need to be.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, Councilor Godus.
Yeah, thank you guys for helping put this together. Thank you, City Attorney Carl Hanley's working on this for a number of years as well. you know, I hope that this serves as a encouragement to our friends at the county to come in at that $4 million. The county, we are also county residents here in this room, all of us are. And so I think that as we all are looking at ensuring the future of this river, along with our friends in Mesa County and Grand Junction, hopefully this serves to help inspire Newcastle and Silt and other communities as well. So I'm really excited about this. I think this is a fantastic opportunity and I'm happy to support it.
Before we call the question, which I think will be successful, I want to just say thank you. Thank you for everyone's hard work. This last October, I was honored to represent Glenwood with some of our senior staff at a Sonoran Institute WaterWise seminar in Grand Junction. And it was during that time that I realized and learned how insulated and thoughtful and just wise our water rights are in community based on the decisions that our forefathers made to make sure this community has the water to service us. And we absolutely do, based on the flows that we have historically had. Something could change, but regardless, this is the lifeblood. And while the Front Range communities look for water, the Western Slope communities need to take action to hold on to our water. And this is the action to do that. So I appreciate everybody, all those involved, and we'll go ahead and call the question.
It's unanimous. It passes.
Thanks.
Thank you very much for your leadership. We really appreciate it.
At least we get something from it. That's right. Yeah. Okay, we will move on to a Southbridge update. Ryan Gordon, our city engineer.
Hello, City Council. Ryan Gordon, City Engineer. So our Southbridge update. Not a whole lot of updates. I think this will kind of be the last one that there's not a whole lot of meaningful updates, but let me get into it. So again, as of last time, you know, a lot of sort of meetings and discussions sort of behind the house. We have met with Garfield County recently. Good discussion, really just bringing them up to date on what the revisions are, the changes are. The output of that meeting is we kind of discussed having a work session with Garfield County and kind of walk through that with the BOCC. So more to come when we have that opportunity to speak to the BOCC. A bunch of other meetings. The one that's going to have kind of a big output. As you know, we have this rural surface transportation grant. This is the $50 million grant. That grant's going to go to CDOT. We've been working with CDOT and FHWA to get that grant agreement developed. So several meetings with CDOT and FHWA to clarify some of the language and some of the requirements. One of the things we're doing is what's called an AC letter, advanced construction letter, that essentially allows us to put money into the project that can count against our match to that grant prior to the grant being funded and the money distributed. So that allows us to work through right-of-way acquisition, design, and use those dollars that we're spending to count against our grant match. So it's an important mechanism to keep the project going while things at the federal level move at a slow pace. Kind of the other meeting we sat down with the airport group, had a really good positive discussion as well and talked to them. Some of the impacts that we discussed are with the new realignment that we're proposing, there is a series of hangars and a maintenance shop that are in the way, to say it gently, of our road. So we discussed, hey, how do we move it? Where do we move it? What does the new facilities want to look like? So we kind of had those introduction meetings with those guys. So the other biggest thing that kind of happened over the last couple of weeks is we've been talking with Jacobs Consulting, who was the design engineer for many, many years on the project, about their fees to redesign the bridge and the access road, and to wrap up the rest of the design elements that were left over from the 90%. They initially came in at $2.5 million to do the design. We had a series of negotiations. That number is settled around $2.2 million to bring the project to completion. In that discussion, we are going to get the project done in about 1 calendar year. We have a milestone towards the end of September of 2025. So our overall goal would then be to get the project out to bid around September of next year, with construction probably starting end of 25, beginning of 26. Just to clarify, at a previous council, we did allocate monies for the project for the design fee. So we're not looking for a decision that has been made already, but just wanted to inform you of our intention of moving forward. That's generally the updates of significance. So I'm going to turn it back to you guys for any questions you guys may have.
Councilor Cap.
Hi, Ryan. Thank you for the update. I was just curious about that amount for Jacobs. I had it in my mind, I guess, that we had about $1 million left with them. What all does the 2 million get us?
Yeah, so the previous estimate that Jacobs provided was based on their 90% in getting it to the end of the design.
Based on the current.
That was based on the
current
90%,
design.
right? Prior to us changing some elements of the project.
Okay.
So
All right.
their fee incorporates the rest of what was changed outside of that initial scope. And to be quite frank, we have a schedule crunch. And so those fees reflect kind of the pressures of that schedule.
Like an accelerated timeline for them.
Yeah.
Okay, so it always costs money when we change things, even though we're changing it to save money, but there are costs associated.
That's right. That's right. You know, in depending on how you look at it, you know, every time frame, make it a week, a month, a year with construction costs. So trying to get to the finish line as soon as possible, so we aren't recognizing additional cost incursions.
Inflation. And
Yeah,
that.
correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other questions for Ryan? Since we are having public comment for every item now, we'll go ahead and see if any members of the public would like to ask questions about the Southbridge update. And this also applies online if there are any members of the community that would like to ask questions about Southbridge. Okay, we will bring it back to council. And thank you so much. We appreciate you, Ryan.
Yeah, thanks, everybody.
Yeah, have a great day. So because of our agenda change, we are now going to jump into item 21 now with regard to lot sizes. So Watkins, thank you so much.
Good evening, everybody. Watkins Folk Gray, Senior Planner. And I have a presentation that I'm going to share my screen for.
Okay.
Okay. So I did hear the motion. Tonight, we're going to be talking just about changes to lot standards. So I have some slides that we'll want to skip over, and we'll have some changes that we'd need if you guys choose to approve. For our timeline, this began with our strategic housing plan update. So in early 2023, we had a number of public meetings, public work sessions, joint work sessions with City Council and Planning and Zoning Commission. The last time this was an action item for City Council was in November of last year. And most recently, we've had a public listening and education session. Since that time, we've also mailed out this to about 1,800 of my friends in all the zone districts that are affected by this potentially. This follows the blue and yellow postcard that was mailed in November. This one is light blue and green. And so for a little bit more background, the strategic housing plan update that we adopted last summer has a number of recommendations about improving affordability of housing in the city. And a lot of their recommendations do tie into what we're discussing tonight, relating to density and infill development and how that relates to affordability. So even though we are looking at only one kind of subset of the recommendation, I do want to note for the record Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation from back in October, which related to duplexes, triplexes, lot standards, and the density bonus provisions. At the listening session on April 29th, which was online, we as staff presented background information about this project. And the real purpose was to try to explain to the public why we were doing what we're doing and what is being presented. We had about 60 participants and we had a lot of questions. I've tried to summarize kind of some of the topics that we heard a few times, and that's in your packet here. We had a good discussion, I think, by staff and had a lot of good questions from the public. And I'm going to skip some slides. So lot standards. In the most basic way I can describe lot standards, they regulate how many units are allowed. So if I'm a property owner and I'm interested in developing for residential on my lot, first I will check to see is what I want to do allowed. Am I trying to build a duplex? Is that allowed? A single family home, is that allowed? Multifamily, is that allowed? And if so, how many? And that's what lot standards help us determine. So what we're proposing tonight is reducing the minimum lot standards or lot areas for attached units in the RM1, RM2, RH, and RT zone districts. This relates to multifamily. And reducing the minimum lot area for single family residences in the RR, RM2, RH, and RT zone districts. And so that gets to subdivisions. So here's a nice chart that explains what we're proposing to change. I could walk you through an example. Basically, if you have a lot, your area of the lot, you can use this table to determine how many units you can legally have. And so, as you can see here, we're proposing to make some changes. We do have a range that's proposed for some of these, and these are for the lot area for single family detached. This range, 3,000 to 4,000, we didn't want to give you an exact number because we wanted City Council to have a little bit of flexibility. So we will need you all to weigh in on that, and we can have some back and forth with staff if you like, but that's the thing in here that's kind of open-ended. So when we change lot standards, what we're trying to do here is allow smaller units, smaller homes, which tend to be more affordable. We would be allowing increased density in neighborhoods that are already urbanized here, allowing infill development for efficient development in our city. What won't change are how much parking is required when there's new development. There are minimum standards for parking that have to be met, and that's not changing here. We're not changing the amount of landscaping that people have to provide. People still have to provide common open space. We're still not allowing development when there's slopes over 30%. There's still design standards that have to be met. And so basically everything else in Title 70 besides what I've just described is staying the same. And I say this because there are standards, even when there's something that's a use by right, there are still standards that have to be met and still a process for approval for that. And that is not changing. So I'm not going to read it to you, but there are 5 criteria of approval that need to be met for text amendments to the municipal code. And that's all in your packet. Our comprehensive plan, we do think supports the proposed changes tonight. We have goals including increased housing density, provide a diversity of housing types. Some of our policies and actions from the comprehensive plan include providing incentive to developers to build condos or townhouse units, promote transit-oriented developments, encourage a compact urban form, increase allowable unit densities, consider density or zoning bonuses to provide affordable housing and workforce housing. That's not as applicable tonight, but also creating policies or programs to preserve existing missing middle housing, exploring ways to develop new missing middle housing. So I have findings. These are the same as are in your packet, but we do need to make a finding for each of the 5 criteria of approval if you choose to approve. And if you are looking for a motion to approve tonight, we are looking at changes to 07020 and not 07030 as was in the packet. So that is all I have for you guys, and I will open it up to questions from you all, and we're going to be taking public comment tonight too.
Any questions from council? Now, as a reminder, we did have a work session, so we may be a little less, okay. Councilor Dunn.
All right, thank you. Watkins, quick question. I'm mainly interested in the single family detached scenario here. Explain how explain a positive situation where this minimum standard would affect that. If we go down and you have a range there between 3,000 and 4,000, what's the difference? What could happen at 3,000, at 4,000, or at what the P and Z say, also 3,000? So what could be the difference? What could be the effects of us reducing that lot size?
Yeah, so let's say that I own a lot that's 7,000 square feet, and tonight, if you choose to, reduce the lot standards to 3,500 square feet as a minimum, I could subdivide my lot legally. Right now, I could not subdivide it, so I could create a subdivision where another single family home, it would be on a fairly small lot, it would be a small house, and it would have to fit within the building envelope as determined by setbacks and the height restriction and all the rest.
How many larger lots would you say we have? I'm sure you guys have looked at our inventory.
Yeah, and our larger lots especially are in the RL and RR zones.
Right.
Because those have pretty large minimums. There's definitely some potential for subdivisions.
And if I understand this right, original town sites are not affected as much because they're smaller lots to begin with, right? And are they exempt? How does this work?
Yeah, with original town site lots, it can get a little bit complicated. So these regulations would apply to them. With original town site lots, and these are lots that are in our downtown area that were platted in the 1890s. It depends. The answer is it depends. So
Okay.
for some of those lots that were developed on, it depends on what the pattern of development was and whether any kind of subdivision or consolidation action has taken place over the years. They will still apply to old town site lots, but there are potentially situations where they could go even smaller because of those prior subdivisions.
If I may, Watkins, could you walk us through? So what you're saying is, if you own 3 2,500 square foot downtown shotgun lots, the old lots, and you develop those together, the lot is 7,500 square feet. And so this would allow you to subdivide that half, which can go back down to the 2,500 each. Is that correct?
I would say it depends whether structure were built all the way across and whether.
Right, and if they're in unity of ownership and all of that, but just as a general matter, that's kind of what you're looking at in the downtown, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But what I just heard is out of 3 lots, you make 2.
Right, depending on, it has the potential to be 3 because if all of those, if the pattern of development, they were all kept separate, even though they were in unity of ownership. But if you say some of those big corner lots,
Yeah.
you see that are on 3 or 4.
Yeah.
If that house runs all the way across it, then these regulations applying that minimum size would be 3,000 or 3,500.
Because the house was built over the lot line.
Yeah, built across the lot. line.
Exactly.
Got it.
Yeah.
And for the attached dwelling, it would basically be the same thing, but you could still only put, I mean, if I read this right, 2 units is all you're gonna get.
And the example is a 7,000 square foot lot.
Right, or if you drop it down to, what do you guys recommend, 2,500?
Okay, in the RM1 zone.
Yeah, RM1 is the one I'm concerned with.
Right, so if we trying to keep this simple for easy
Yeah,
math.
please.
I own a lot that's 5,000 square feet. Right now, I cannot have a duplex, even though duplexes are an allowed use by special use permit in RM1. I could not have a duplex right now because I don't meet the lot standards. If this were changed to 2,500 square feet per unit, so, excuse me, so 5,000 square feet per duplex, if that were changed, then it would be possible.
But
You still have special use review.
Right, still a special use review. Get planning commission.
And really quickly, what's the likelihood? And I'm coming from a
I'm
real
done.
estate perspective.
Thank you.
I know you are. What's the likelihood that a house that sits on a 5,000 square foot lot is so far over on the lot that you could break away the 2,500 square foot and still have a setback for both that anticipated amended lot line and the existing house? Do you think there's a lot of examples like that that exist?
I wouldn't think very many.
Mhm.
5,000 square feet is not a very big lot still.
Yeah. Okay.
By 100.
Okay. Counselor Weimer.
I think you stole my thunder. I was gonna ask that question.
Sorry,
Because,
I just couldn't help myself. Yeah.
I wish you would try to help yourself in the future, madam. Kidding.
Okay.
So, right, so back to the 7,000 square foot deal, right? And I think the mayor, I think almost exactly touched on my question, right? So the odds of being able to like split that thing right down the middle, have all the setbacks, still have street access, right? Because you're gonna need street access, have parking, it's not on a hill, it's not on a funky slope, right? Like that, those are all the still considerations that remain, right? And so just because you have a larger lot and you're able to chunk out 3,500 square feet or 4,000 square feet, still doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be able to develop it or build anything on it. Am I correct, given sort of these constraints?
Yeah, it'd be kind of an individual basis. But
Right.
If there's a home built in the middle of the lot, that's probably not likely.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll keep the rest of what I'm thinking to comments. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. Counselor Godus.
I think Marco asked my question, but just to reiterate, if somebody wanted to subdivide the lot, it would have to go through special use or a subdivision agreement, which would allow public comment and all the neighbors to be notified.
Or just a subdivision we're talking about without the development that happens later. Subdivisions of one lot into two is the process called minor subdivision, and that actually is an administrative process.
So if somebody wanted to build, subdivide and build, that would be, where would it be, where would the public input be triggered in a situation like this?
It depends on the zone district. We were talking about RM1 before, Mark. So at right now, if someone wants to build a duplex in RM1, they have to get a special use permit. They have to go to Planning and Zoning Commission for approval and have a public hearing anytime there's a duplex in RM1 or RL.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Stalinsky.
So my question, I'm always, when I think about this, thinking about pathways to ownership. And so say, in theory, I have a house, I've raised my family, I want to convert my house. I think I can take that structure, maybe add a little on to it, turn it from a single family into a duplex. Would this minimum lot size allow you to be able to create subdivision and then have 2 for sale units? Is that how that works?
It would make that more easy to do. Yes, ma'am.
Along with all the other robust process that's already in place, but it just allows for an evolution of a property rather than.
That's right. Yeah. And so the situation would depend on what the zoning is and the area of the lot again.
Right.
But by lowering that barrier, more lots would be eligible. Describing.
Counselor Kelp.
Hi, Watkins. Just looking at the table, you guys, it's included the RR zone. And there aren't very many areas that are that.
That's correct.
Some of them are on the edges of the city where there aren't even really roads yet. I guess if we were to consider something like that, would we be able to just not include that zone?
Sure.
at this time. Just, it seems that those are areas that are maybe because of the steepness, questionable for development anyway. So I guess my tendency would be maybe not to include those.
Yes, you could choose to exclude that.
Just until there's further conversation about development in those areas.
Yeah, and just as a reminder, steep slopes are already regulated, so nothing about that
Right.
is changing. If they subdivided a lot that is unbuildable because it's steepness, then they create another unbuildable lot.
Okay, or two. Yep. Okay, thanks.
Okay. I'm just looking very quickly. I think that my ask just a little premature on where we are at, but further down in this presentation, I'm likely going to ask you to pull up the zoning map for the city.
Okay.
So we can really get a comprehensive look on, what we're discussing. Okay. Because when I see RR, rural residential, I'm seeing, to Shelley's point, I doubt that there are even too many homes within RR. And they likely have the 30% or more slope in the majority of them. So
That's entirely possible.
yeah, okay. Counselor Weimer.
Watkins as a follow-up, but if I'm able to like split my lot into two and I choose not to develop that second lot, is a conservation easement allowed? Would that be allowed on that newly created lot? Could I do other sort of non-developmental things to that new lot?
Conservation easements would be allowed. In terms of uses that are allowed, that would be governed.
Not
by-
uses, I only meant conservation easement. That was really my question.
Yep, that would be possible.
Yeah. I
And
thought it
if
was-
someone's goal was to prevent it from being developed,
Right.
they could just retain ownership of it as well.
Okay. Yeah, fair point. Yep.
Any additional questions? Then I will go ahead and open up for public comment. As a reminder, you can come up, you'll have 3 minutes. I need to know your name. Do you live in city limits? And then also please, because I will interrupt you if you start talking about other items, keep it to lot size discussions. Thank you. I think there is a list, and I think that John Banks is the only one who signed up. So John, if you wanted to start, you're more than welcome.
There's a few other people who wanted to comment, but I thought that list was for the 3 minutes with.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. Well, then we'll go ahead and whoever wants to go first.
Good evening. My name is Gary Vick. I live at 614 Cowden Avenue, and some of the questions that were posed by three former P and Z members that are now on council, I think are emblematic of some of the confusion that we faced on this. We generally made comments, and I think most of the emails that you received addressed kind of the headline item, which was duplexes in single-family neighborhoods. And I'll be real honest, after we saw that, we didn't go into the details of the lot sizes in various neighborhoods. But I do have some questions. I don't know how to get them answered at this stage, but to Councilman Weimer's point of a 7,000-foot lot that can now be subdivided into two, and someone's not likely to have 3,500 feet unencumbered with proper setbacks and so forth, that's certainly true. But that home could burn down. It could be bought and redeveloped. You're seeing that in Aspen. People are knocking down single-family homes, putting whatever they can on the remaining land. And I think that would be a threat in a neighborhood such as yours, Councilman. I'll be honest. I know so much less about this than the three former members of P and Z. I'm probably going to say something really stupid, but I don't know how this impacts our neighborhood now. I know that my neighborhood is on Cowden Avenue, is extremely dense. Many of the lot next door to Mr. Todd, for example, I think is zoned for 4 units and it currently has 2. They're going to be knocked down and redeveloped here pretty soon. So I would certainly like to know, are we talking 4, 8, 12? What does this change do? And I don't have a clue. And that's partially my fault because I didn't dig into it. But when I saw the headline, I decided I don't want the headline. And those are what most of the comments that I had, and I think other people had, were directed at. So what I would recommend is that you table this not indefinitely, but for a while so we can wrap our heads around it. I'm not sure you guys understand what you're voting on, and I certainly don't.
Who else would like to speak this evening? Linda, come on up.
Hi, my name is Linda Holloway. I live in the house my great-grandfather built 113 years ago in North Glenwood at 115 Fifth Street. I don't know how to say this kindly, so I'll say it bluntly. There's a medical condition called locked-in syndrome, and it's a brain condition. And it's
Linda, I'm sorry, but I'm going to interrupt you unless you're talking about lot separation, not whether or not there's a general medical assessment about your city council.
There's a concept in clothing then called ease. Can I talk about that?
Just if you could just,
Okay.
I
there's a
appreciate
reason for
analogies. I'm the
ease
queen
in
of analogies.
clothing,
Yeah.
So you don't have to
Okay.
have 3 people
Okay.
help you to pry into your clothes
Mhm.
and pry out of them.
Okay.
And ease is part of what a lot size is. You have light and air and a little bit of sense of your own authority on your land, and not with a house next door up to your nose. This will not allow that. And there are too many people who are absentee landlords, don't live here and are affected by things. I don't know if you were able to read my letters, but even at 5,000 square feet and not including anything lower than that, at 5,000 square feet, that would be allowing as a use by right over 1,600 additional houses within the city limits of Glenwood. I have those spreadsheets if you want them. I removed quite a bit, like places that wouldn't allow, just from their nature, additional houses on their lots, even though they had the land for it. I think this is a terrible idea. We're already overdone with parking in North Glenwood. People are parking nowhere near their homes. And unfortunately, I believe, or I've seen it happen, where a relatively new development in my community allowed on-street parking to be used as off-street parking as part of that number. Please don't do this. If you want to move to New York or Chicago, go. They have lots of nice close houses. If you want to live here, have at least some variety in the kinds of houses. Everybody used to have a different house. No, not anymore. They're stamped out.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Okay. Go ahead. Come on.
I'm Scott Proborse. I live at 509 West 12th Street. Our lot size is probably about 8,000 square feet. So I guess it could be divided into maybe 3 lots. Is that correct?
Well,
The numbers.
in all honesty, we only have some approximates being thrown out, so we can't definitively say,
Okay.
yeah.
Um, so it sounds to me like this is a bit of a backdoor way of moving toward the duplexes. I know we weren't talking about duplexes, but I did hear that word mentioned a number of times by the staff. So my concern is that as the Zoom meeting, when we had the Zoom meeting in April, there was some discussion about the desire to infill, and the comment came up about how do you eat an elephant, and that's one bite at a time. And I think this is more like taking the frog and putting him in the water and slowly turning the temperature up. And I just wonder if we're kind of getting a back doorway to move toward those things that we aren't talking about tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yep, come on up, Lori.
I'll try and get that. Hello, Lori Chase, 705 Cowden Drive. I wanted to let you know, and I'm gonna kind of mix fire with this item on the agenda. My insurance just went up. My homeowner's insurance went up 25%. I'm on a fixed income. So that being said,
okay,
I'm concerned when we talk about infill and when we talk about reducing lot sizes, how is that going to affect neighborhoods and getting out in case of wildfire? I personally live in a neighborhood that is pretty dense. I live down the street from Gary Vick. And I was sitting on my porch last night and looking at all the elm trees, and some of them are probably 25% dead, which is an extreme fire danger. And there's no way these people, they're landlords, they don't really care. They're only going to spend what they need to. So I really would like you to consider these reduced lot sizes and how they will affect people and their insurance and their safety especially. Thank you.
Thanks. Who else would like to speak this evening? Good. Oh, hold on one second. Okay.
Bless you.
Whoa. Yeah.
I'll ask your indulgence as Watkins did. My remarks are obviously prepared before I was aware of the changes that you guys made to the proposal.
So if you could just let us know your name and whether or not you live in city limits.
I'm John Banks and I live at 1015 Park West Drive in the city limits. I think one of the first questions that we were asking with this proposal was this, really, who wants this? Is there a neighborhood that's asking for reduced lot sizes? Is there an area of the city that's come to you and said, hey, look, we really need smaller lots here? Is this something that's coming from the people? It does seem like Aaron has hits on something very clear, that it's very likely to look at maybe duplex conversions rather than scrapes or something else. And I think he made a good point that we may be looking at sort of a backdoor way of allowing the duplexes. And it may be a little bit of a boiling the frog. I saw that the triplexes and the density bonuses had been taken off the proposal, but they were going to be revisited. So I'm sort of thinking we've got the whole thing to talk.
This, actually, all of that has passed, and tonight we are discussing lots.
One of the tough questions is going to have to do with affordability, because we have tried increasing housing supply and we've learned that doesn't necessarily give us affordability. There's, hundreds of apartments being built over here and have been built, and we haven't seen like a real improvement in affordability because of that. So I think that experiment's sort of been done. It's very likely that some of these units will be less expensive to build, but they will probably not sell or rent less expensively. They will sell or rent for what the market will bear. Probably the biggest one here is this. Zoning exists to preserve the character of neighborhoods. That's what it's for. And half size lots is the other part of this proposal. That is a really drastic change to existing neighborhoods, a really drastic change. I think people will feel betrayed. The most important question is this: does this affect quality of life for the people in Glenwood Springs? Is it an improvement for the people who are here now? And if we don't have a really strong, resounding yes answer to this, we probably ought to stop. I think you've heard a lot of objection to the duplexes. And I suspect that a lot of people read this proposal and looked at page 1 and saw the duplexes. They didn't need to read any further to know they didn't like what they were seeing. I suspect a lot of people didn't get to page 2 and think very closely about the lot sizes. And I encourage you to take comment on that, since this proposal has really morphed into something that's significantly different. I question, if this turns out to be a mistake, can we undo it, or have we vested people in certain zoning rights? And that's a concern, because if it's a bad idea and you can't undo it, that's tough. And finally, when duplexes were being considered, maybe that had something to do with this, but everyone hopes it doesn't come to this. But I've had 4 people contact me asking about petition and campaign strategies. Nobody wants another petition, but I get the feeling there's some upset people out there, and it could happen. Can this withstand an initiative?
No,
Thank you.
I appreciate threats. Okay, any other comments? Come on up. Let us know your name and what, if you live in.
John Proctor, 310 Park Drive. Got a double lot with the house encroaching over the lot. And so for me personally, it would benefit me cleanly and clearly. But there are some things that were brought up that have always kind of been a concern for me because of the up valley pressure from RAFTA and SKICO and kind of how they are using Glenwood as their bedroom community in certain ways. I am torn between the two, and it's how do you create the density, but how do you do it well with all of the cost pressures and labor pressures that are going on. I've seen many projects just get pared down to their bare minimums, and really important things that sold them to communities get stripped out, and you're left with kind of lifeless husks that aren't going to benefit the community as much as they were sold as. So that's my concern from the density growth point of view. But as far as smaller lots, I think density is a good thing, and density is important. And this is a beautiful place. People want to live here. And I think as long as it's done well, then density is a good thing.
Thank you. Richard, yeah. And Richard, would you do me a favor and flip that chair around that Mr. Banks moved? Thank you. Got to keep things tidy.
Well, thoughts just occurred to me. I hadn't planned to speak on this subject, but when people move into an area, they're moving into a particular neighborhood. And that one of the decisions they make, is it the sort of neighborhood we want to be in? Is the density of the houses, the one next door, as close as I want it to be? Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but most people move into, it's a factor they take into account when they move into a particular area. Now, at the moment where we stand, if my next door neighbor decides he wants to make it into a 2 houses or whatever he wants to do with it, he's got to go and ask approval. He's got to go to the planning and zoning, and he gets some public and notices sent out. What this is going to do is to take that away. So the first I'll know about it is when they start digging up the ground or knocking down the house. So I'm never mind the particular areas or anything like that. Are we taking away people's rights and changing the nature of the neighborhood that they thought they were going to be in for the rest of their lives? Some of them. I built my house on a land that could have been a quadruplex, and I made a single house on it. I don't want to see masses of houses around me either. I just like to think about that a little bit, because people get very upset about that. And, you know, I'm from England, where, you know, a man's house is his castle. Thanks.
Thank you. Is anyone else here this evening to speak on this agenda item? Jim, come on up.
Hi, I'm Jim Mason. I live in Glenwood Springs, Sunny Acres Road. You all got my letter I sent, and thank you for the responses I got back on that. I think maybe I would agree with this gentleman over here that we might want to have some further discussion and input, and so that everybody's a little clearer on what exactly all these things do mean. I remember way back when they changed the code to allow single family on a 2,500 square foot lot. And I even did a development, if you will, small development where we had a 7,500 square foot lot. It's right up on 11th and Bennett. We split that lot and built a new house on 2,500 square feet, and we remodeled the existing house that was on the 5,000 square feet. So I think it fit in with the character of the neighborhood. I don't know that it created, we had off-street parking, we had all the other things. So in general, I don't know that I would be against some of these lot changes, but it's a little bit too much to swallow in, in this amount of time. So I would just encourage that maybe we do have a work session or whatever the format is to really look at some real world scenarios here and maybe really look at some of the zone areas so that if Park West is clearly against it, then I don't know, maybe we shouldn't be doing it. I don't know, but I think we need a little bit more education on that. So thank you.
Okay. Is anyone else here this evening to speak on this item? Anyone online? Okay. I'm going to close public comment, and my ask is that our planning department come up and address some of the questions or concerns that were identified in public comment.
I'm here to answer questions.
I think that there were some, I can kind of go through it. I guess let's start with Mr. Richard Todd, who said, will there be public notice on lot line amendments?
And I'm just
Subdivisions.
introducing myself, Hannah Clausen,
Yep,
Community
thank you.
Development Director. I was taking notes on the public comments.
Okay,
so we
great. Thank you.
Tackle
Perfect.
this one together.
Okay.
So your first one is about public comment.
Public comment on subdivisions.
On
Yeah.
subdivisions, right. So on the lot size standards, it works a little bit differently than the duplexes. And so I can understand how separating the two now is a little bit challenging in thinking about it. When you, and I believe, I didn't catch the gentleman's name who just had actually done, he has a real world example of doing exactly what it is tonight on that subdivision.
Jim Mason.
Yes, thank you for that. So subdivided a lot that had enough space to accommodate 5,000 square feet and 3,500, I believe he said, on the other. And so that allowed 2 single family homes to go in place of 1. Single family home building does not require public comment in the city anywhere. So that aspect of it is a little bit different than changing the uses that we were looking at before and how the process is. We're not changing the process here. So the process of public comment, public notice would remain the same for what it is now. It's only dividing lots, which would allow, in staff's opinion, for this change, more likely is more single family home lots in looking at this. But because single family home lots don't currently have public comment, it's not a change that is part of this proposal.
Great. Thank you for
I'm
clarifying.
happy to talk more on that. I know it's hard kind of pulling these apart. Looking at some of the other questions that I was writing down. This change also, as I just mentioned, is not changing the density. It's allowing more lots. So there was a comment on how this is related to duplexes. So I just gave you the example of it can increase single family lots. It can also make some of the larger lots in our town able to have duplexes if they are in a zone that allows it. So it's not a change to the allowed use. It's a spacing requirement, which I think some of our public is actually very familiar with. So I applaud you guys on understanding some of the complexities of our code. So wanted to mention that. There was also a question about who wants this that I did want to address. You know, we're looking at this from a variety of strategies that were proposed by a lot of consultants, very smart people. But what community development staff also experiences is a lot of property owners themselves that come in with unique lots that are close to being able to have a single family home or being divided to allow another single family home on a lot that aren't able to do it. So there is a desire from property owners, community members that have properties that are somewhat small or just close enough that it might be able to do it. So there is a desire from the people, not everyone, you know, but we do get inquiries quite frequently in community development from people that are looking at that opportunity. And you know, that's an opportunity to sell a piece of property off so that another house can be built to help support your lifestyle here in Glenwood. There is a desire on some level from property owners looking to do these things. And I'm sure you guys have looked at lots before. I know there's real estate and development experience on council. So I think you know what I'm talking about when there are community members that are looking at those opportunities for themselves. We don't get a lot of those inquiries from large developers. Like, again, this is small density items. So I did want to, you know, who wants this? There's policy that's being advocated from housing experts and things, but then there's also real world examples from community members that want to do or explore other opportunities available on their own property. And I think the one last thing that I'll mention, there was, you know, how does this improve quality of life? And that's always a very tricky question, and it's very subjective, and we all love this place that we live and we want to see it continue to be the amazing place that we live in. We do have a lot of work and public outreach that's gone into our comprehensive plan. So I would just kind of point to those questions of, you know, how does this improve quality of life, or what is our quality of life in Glenwood Springs? There is a lot of effort that's gone into that guiding document that we spent 2 years on, that kind of addresses these aspects as well, that I would just kind of point to as reference. That's kind of all the things. You know, they're great questions and valid points from the public. And if we have additional questions, we're always available to answer them.
Linda Holloway mentioned a 1,600 number. Can you just reference that, address that, discuss it?
Yeah, I think what the goal there was to try to figure out what's going to happen. And this was before duplexes were described, right? So how many lots are eligible to have duplexes? Something that.
Yeah, I think she was talking about lot separation. Yeah, because we're not discussing duplexes this evening.
We are not, but I think her comments came in before that was scrubbed. And so I think those.
She said it she just said it tonight. Okay.
But so what are the impacts of this? I did notice that her numbers didn't take into account zoning at all. And what the zoning has a big impact on what's allowable. So we looked at 2 zone districts, the RL and RM1 zone, which I think was what she was looking at as well. Came up with numbers much lower than that. We were looking at, 914 total RM1 lots that are 5,000 square feet or more. And all but about 52 of those are developed already. So we'd be looking at a scrape or remodel situation to add any units to those. So between RL and RM1, there's 54 vacant lots, we think.
Okay.
Realistically, they're 10 vacant lots or less, because of that 54, most of those are on steep hillsides or in some other way, probably not developable.
Okay.
So not very many vacant lots that could truly have something come from scratch. I did notice that about 4 of those are in the Park East neighborhood.
Okay.
So that was one place where they were a little bit clustered. And just kind of random pockets around town where these vacant lots that really could be developed.
Sure, but you mentioned Park East, that's a covenant controlled subdivision, so that would likely not allow this.
Yeah, I don't know what their
Mhm.
covenant
Yeah.
situation is there, but
Yeah.
that is a possibility that they would
Sure.
not allow something other than
Mhm.
single
It's,
family.
well, I think it's also a PUD as well. So I think that there's some nuances, and I'm not trying to dispel a community member's logistical analysis or, quantified analysis. But the reality is that of those 10 lots you said that are in RM1, it would take a community member coming to us and asking that to happen as well. So, I think that that's a piece of all of this. This is not, none of this is by force. This is absolutely a discussion. Once a community member comes to the community development office and says, I want this to happen. Now, we have to weigh private property rights with the good of the community. And that's always going to be the challenge of a city council. Because if we only make decisions that support a community, it does have a tendency to usurp private property rights and vice versa. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I think Councillor Dem has a question. Oh, actually, Councillor Kalp was first.
Oh. Quick question just for staff. What are your thoughts on smaller lot sizes in and of themselves helping with affordability?
Yeah. Smaller lots mean smaller homes, obviously. Smaller homes tend to be more affordable. It's not a hard and fast rule, but when you think about examples out there, they're starter homes, they're missing middle, and they tend to be more affordable. So it goes both ways by smaller units and smaller lots, I think.
Okay, because there have been questions about what are our goals here? And our goals are to try to come up with ways to have more affordable housing, at least attainable housing for our workforce and local people within Glenwood Springs. So okay, that's it for
If I may, Councilor
Yes.
Kaup, the one other goal in this particular on the lot size standard, as council has iterated to community development staff and the community throughout all of our projects and plans, is there's a strong desire for more ownership opportunity.
Absolutely.
And
right.
it's something, if you look at Glenwood Springs building statistics, we have not had ownership development. There's one project in the last 10 years. And our single family home development is also very slow compared to our neighboring jurisdictions that have a little bit more land than us. So, I mean, that's kind of the reason why. But this also gets to the goal of creating more ownership opportunities. And yes, they might be smaller, but we're seeing an appetite for those smaller, and because there's less land and a smaller home, that price, and it's, you guys haven't talked about affordability aspects of this. We're still looking at market rate development. But if you're lessening how big a home is, and we have real estate expertise on council that can probably speak to this better than I can, that naturally brings down the price at least a little bit. So it's creating ownership opportunities and smaller lots and houses that may create more attainable ownership opportunity as well.
Right, absolutely. Thanks, Hannah.
Councillor Dem.
Thank you. Just real quick, this is an educational piece for you all. Are the setbacks affected by this change?
No, sir, they're not,
25-foot front, 15 rear, 5-foot side.
depending what the zoning is, yes, sir.
Okay, stays in place. Thank you.
That makes for a very small house on a 2,500 square foot lot. So, Councillor Zelinski.
And I wanted to bring up, I try to, of course, listen to all the direct communication I get, but I also pay attention to the chatter that is out there on Nextdoor and, Facebook and all the other things. And I saw quite a lot of interest in the potential for, incorporating this trend of tiny homes into our community. And I think these smaller lot sizes, once again, it goes back to, something that I think about a lot is a pathway to ownership. You get in, you get started. My first house was half of a duplex, and it got me in and it got me started, and I'm still here. And I wouldn't be here if I hadn't been able to make that first home purchase. That first equity purchase is the reason that I'm still sitting here. I was able to build a business, raise a family, and now serve my community. And so I am very aware of what a vital component that is. And I think that by recognizing that need and like thoughtfully coming up with ways that we can incorporate that, it still exists that we have all of these standards that like Counselor Dem just identified. We're not going to like force things on neighborhoods. It's still gonna be, it's not, you know, there's still gonna be the process of, you know, going through all the planning and the zoning and everything else. But this really does recognize, you know, letting people come and, you know, we can have vibrancy. We can have kids next to people who are retired, and we can have teachers that come here and can live here. And so, you know, think hard about, you know, what we are trying to accomplish and what that looks like in a really vibrant, fully functioning community.
Okay, well, at this point, oh, Counselor Gotis, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just about to ask if we were on
Oh.
questions, comments, or motions.
You know, honestly, at this point, it appears that there's some commenting going on.
Okay.
So I would look for a motion on something, and then we can go ahead and transition to commenting.
I would make a motion that we adopt, is it 0720?
720.
Thank you. Minimum lot size standards of 2,500 feet per staff recommendations.
Well, I'll look for a second.
The range we gave, that's fine, but the
Okay.
range we gave was 3,000 to 4,000 just for the.
Oh, sure. I'll do that then.
Which one?
Yeah.
3,000.
The range.
No, well, you need a specific number, right? 3,000. I'll amend my motion, 3,500. Okay.
Counselor Dem.
Madam Mayor, if I may, in ordinance 24/24/11, I would move that we continue this item due to the fact that I think we need to have a better engagement with the community and have discussions and make them understand what this means. I also would like to focus more on the single family detached. What Mr. Mason said is exactly what I'm after. Large lots, split it in two, build two homes, keep the one, build another. And therefore I would move for a continuance so we can have a larger discussion.
And so, oh, I'm looking for a second.
I will second that motion.
Okay.
Thank you.
So very quickly, what happened there is that Counselor Gotis made a motion. It died for lack of a second. It happened very quickly. So with enough people in the room, I want to clarify. So at that point, it came back to council, and Counselor Dem has made a motion to continue this. Counselor Kaup has seconded it. So we have a first and a second, and I will open it up to discussion with Counselor Gotis.
I think that we can continue it. But what we'll get is more coordinated email campaigns. We'll get more people showing up in bad faith, more postings on Nextdoor that are meant to incite distrust and mistrust in council and what we're trying to do. This has been before the community in public meetings for a year. I'm sorry if you didn't read past the first page, but specifically lot size division was a part of this. I'm sorry if you got focused on one part, but this was part of it. We've had conversations about it. We'll talk another 6 months about it, and we will end up in the same spot, and we will end up striking it down and not do anything. I don't know that more education is going to help anybody in this room. You know, I think we'll end up still with Mr. Banks and his cue cards, you know, giving us threats of special elections, and that's fine. I'm great with that. Like, I'm sorry, Ryan, I know that's a burden on you, but
What now?
never mind. I think that, you know, that's fine. That the citizens can speak on that if that's the case. If we want to run special election after special election for minor code changes, that's fine. We've had a lot of public processes involve the community. We had a survey where the majority of the community supported much more dramatic changes, triplexes. We've had a comp plan that was just updated that was dozens of public meetings. We redid our entire development code that after 40 years, 5 years ago, that was completed. We have a strategic plan. These are all saying that things like this are reasonable to have a conversation and yes to pass. And we've had this conversation over a year. So I don't know what more education people actually need. I think that it's just people who are against it are going to be against it. And, you know, the people I see that are speaking out are people that have been homeowners, are mostly retirees and second homeowners who have owned a house in this community for decades. But this town is 42% renters. And the gentleman, he's no longer here, who spoke, he's from Park Drive. He said, I didn't catch his name, but we're not the bedroom community anymore. We are the community that people commute to. We import 80% of our employees into this community. Aspen has 70% of their units are deed restricted. We have less than 1%. So making a minor change in lot sizes after having public meetings for a year does not seem like such a heavy lift to me. And so I think, you know, we have all the information we need. We've been talking about, we've had numerous work sessions. I'm ready to make a decision. If the rest of this council is not, we're not going to make any more decisions on trying to advance availability or affordability in this community. I don't know when we ever will. And I guess I would just ask that we just maybe have no more conversations on this, at least for the next 11 months. Thank you.
Counselor Kelp. Actually, hold on one second. I heard from Counselor Dame that he wants to amend his motion. So let's do that really quickly. Look at all your.
Thank you. Just real quick, Hannah, how fast do you think is I didn't put a timeline on it. I forgot. I should have put a 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. What do you want to do?
Sorry, you caught me a little off
Can-
guard.
can you-
What
can-
am I meant to do during that time?
Public outreach.
Yeah.
Figure out that everybody understands, bring up some examples of what we need, what this means, make sure everybody still knows what the rules are that are in place, the whole thing.
Would you be able to put kind of an idea on how much, like how many number of public outreach, that kind of,
I'm gonna need
If-
help from council for that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Could I interrupt, or Steve can, we were just having a quick sidebar that we have a number of moving pieces right now, and maybe just continuing and allowing us to come back with some of that information would probably be better.
Perfect. I will not amend anything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor Kelp.
Okay, and I thank you for the motion, Marco. I think this is the right way to go tonight, just because I do think people were focused on the duplexes and the lot size change is a little more nuanced and might have consequences that we need to better understand as a community. So I think further conversation is needed. And further conversation within the community, like where is more density appropriate? Where can we handle it? You know, is it on a transit route? What are the benefits of doing that? But there was one question that came up tonight, and I think people are, I'm hearing a little bit from online things and from some of the emails and in the crowd tonight that people are feeling that why is council doing this? You know, why are we out to ruin neighborhoods? And that is absolutely what we're not doing. We are elected to think about the future of this city. And that's what we're trying to do by addressing this, because I'm sure if anyone's been in the news, you understand that there is a nationwide housing crisis. Hannah and I were just talking about it. It's kind of a leftover of the recession where there was almost no building for 8 to 10 years. I mean, literally in Glenwood, not a stick was built from 2010 to almost 2015, 2016. So now all of a sudden we've seen a lot, and we've seen some big apartment buildings and things like that. And it feels like a lot. And I totally understand the community saying, whoa, you know, what's happening here? But the reality is that in the last 20 years, our growth rate has been less than 1% a year, if you average it out. And I think significantly less. I don't have an exact number on that, but maybe we can get one. But there are real unintended consequences of letting our housing continue to be sold off to the highest bidder, to become unaffordable and unobtainable by our workforce. And, you know, we're hearing from a lot of people that are older and comfortable in their homes and don't want their neighborhoods to change. And I appreciate that. But there are people who need to live here, and we need to be able to sustain a city in 10 to 20 years from now. And so Sumner brought up some great unintended consequences of limiting our housing and limiting the amount of workers that we allow to live here over the future going forward. And some of those are that housing prices continue to increase. There are more non-resident owners just because investors come in, and if we don't get a handle on affordability of housing, that will continue to happen, and it will happen anyway. Limited workforce housing, higher wage demand, fewer workers, less housing for seniors. Not allowing density within our city will lead to more sprawl. We'll lose more open space. We'll lose more because growth will go outside of the city limits. We lose more wildlife habitat. We see increased traffic due to more commuters, 80% of our workers coming in from the west. So, and also families leave. If families can't afford to live here and find a place to live, that means our schools suffer with loss of student counts. We have a hard time having emergency services personnel live here. If who's going to service our community? Who are going to be our nurses and our teachers and our trash haulers and our plumbers? We need workers here. So I would just say, if you want to know why we're doing this, it's because we all feel charged to think about the future of this community and how we're going to thrive as a city going forward. So we're not out to get you. I'm very sorry, but I hope that we can have a good conversation going forward. Like, how do we solve this issue together? And so yes, let's continue it and continue the conversation.
Councilor Weimer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll support the motion, Councilor Dem. As much as I support the reduction of standard lot sizes, I think it's such a strong tool available to us to use for all the reasons that have been mentioned tonight. It's not a silver bullet, right? It's not going to solve, we're not going to be able to pass this one thing or decide that it's 4,000 or 3,750 or some magic number. And we've hit the affordability button, right? We've solved all the problems, but it's definitely a quiver, an arrow in the quiver that's available to us that we should take advantage of. And a lot of times I ask questions that I know the answers to because I want the answer to be said aloud, and I want the answer to come from the smartest people in the room and not something that some random council person, said. So a lot of times I'll ask a question that I, in a very specific way, so that I can tease out what I think is important for the public to hear. And a lot of that is, it's education, it's understanding the implications, the reality of these decisions, that it's not going to make, any overnight or a 12-month, sort of change on things, because it's still such a tight window of criteria that have to be met for anything to happen. I do support the continuance only insofar that it lets us then go almost zone by zone, right? So that we're not saying 25 or 35 or 37 feet, we're not painting with such a wide brush.
Mm-hmm.
We're allowed to go in with some detail. And for this zone, what do we think is that right number for the minimum zone? And we can look at the map and we can tease it out and understand which neighborhoods, and is it transit, and is it, what's the infrastructure look like in that zone currently, and really understand what is the opportunity to very functionally and wisely allow for more single family housing stock, right? Because I'm super convinced that dividing out these lots, even if it's 54, I would be really quite, amazed by that. I think it's probably even less than that. With the potential of being able to divide down, have the street access, have all of the setbacks, and still be able to create something that's functional and livable. Counselor Zelinski, the tiny homes thing, the diversity, not every house looks alike, and all of those things that have kind of been mentioned tonight. This allows for that, right? And it allows for some new families to come in so that they can live here for the next 30 years, and so that they can, raise their family and be proud of where they live and have that leg into the, or have that step up into the situation. So firmly in support. I think it's a really smart idea for us to come up with the right dimensions by zone. And so I do support the continuance only insofar that it lets us really get into that level of detail. And perhaps even, guys, it turns out that if we can talk about this maybe offline, or you guys can figure it out, but maybe we go to the point where we decide in this zone, we think this is the right number. In that zone, we think that's the right number. Maybe that then can become the impetus for some education and some communication versus us saying, we've got this kind of wiggly range out there. What do you guys think? And we could, right? We could instead say, this is the number. This is how it's going to impact you. This is how it's going to impact them. And that becomes maybe the basis for education and communication. So I will support the motion as it's been stated.
Counselor Zelinski.
Yeah, I support the idea, but I also support the motion. And respectfully, I disagree with Counselor Glodis. I believe in this community. And I think that once we spend a minute digesting this and discussing it, as Counselor Weimer said, there's a lot of validity to this. And I think that the knee-jerk reaction to something that is surprising tends to be, wait, put on the brakes. I think that's what kind of happened when we switched gears and went from talking use by right with duplexes, which is what everybody thought we were talking about, and we kind of brought up the underlying issue. I think it was a surprise, but I think once you sit with it, I think that it's not going to be so hard to live with. As Counselor Weimer said, I think this is a valuable tool in our toolbox. It's not a magic bullet. It's not going to fix all of our problems, but it's a very sensible next step to addressing some community needs. And this is not anybody's like personal agenda or, trying to kind of like do a backdoor to some other outcome. This is a very straightforward step towards, recognizing that we just don't have a lot of pathways to ownership. And that really is our main purpose. And what that looks like is kind of to be defined. But if we don't create the foundation and the opportunity for that, we're never going to get there. And so I recognize this is a time to like let everybody sit with the idea, maybe do a little bit more looking into each individual zone for like, what is kind of the most proper integration of this concept. But it's mainly just to, kind of let everybody feel comfortable with an understanding that we still have the same setbacks, we still have the same standards, we still have, the same criteria for development that, we've become comfortable with. We're just allowing, maybe a little bit more flexibility in, where we can build.
Okay, it's a little story time. So my dad was in construction when I was a kid, and I remember he was up in Aspen for years building, gorgeous, beautiful multi-million-dollar homes in a town that had so many restrictions and rules and regulations, and you can do this and you can't do that. And I remember going to see him over a college break one time, walking into a construction zone, and in the middle of it is a fireplace with like candles still burning on the mantle, and everything around it is demoed. Because from a regulatory perspective, they said historically it had significance. You have to keep the fireplace. You can't do this. You can't do that. So many over the top regulations on what works and what doesn't and how we move forward. And so while I want to make good changes for the community, and I want to be thoughtful and say we're visionaries because that's why we care enough to serve on these boards and commissions. In 10 or 20 years, we're never going to get back the Glenwood that I grew up in. It's gone. It has changed. And so we're stewards of the town in making decisions that at least propel it in a future that keeps it nice and makes it so that it still is that small town community that is not the, I don't know, Breckenridges and Witter Parks that are, all condos. And I can see how, originally this town was all 2,500 square foot lots, right? I have sold homes over the years where, you could pass a stick of butter through the kitchen window to the next door neighbor's house because there were no side yard setbacks. And I'm not sure that this change is going to equate to anything fantastic. I love looking at solutions, and I love the idea that we sit up here and we want to hear solutions. I hate the roadblocks. I hate the threats. We're trying to solve some problems in this town. We're trying to get it so every year the school district doesn't lose tens of, 20s of teachers because they can't find a place to live. And gosh, Wisconsin's pretty affordable and you can afford a house. We do live in a really beautiful place, but we're also aging, all of us, including me. And so the idea of how do we get new members in the community so that we can create and contain and continue a community does take change. And if you fight on everything instead of coming to us, being engaged, sitting at the table and coming up with solutions, I worry about where we go and how we get there. And yet, when you said 10 houses in RM1, I was like, I don't know that I have the stomach. And the time and the energy has already been so much to all of us on this city council, the phone calls. I mean, I've learned a ton. Ray, thank you for your time this morning. I so appreciate it. I'm not going to support this because I'm kind of done with this for right now. I appreciate the idea, but I'm not ready to dive into this. So in 6 months or 8 months, it dies again because you all fight it. And you don't come with solutions, some of you. Instead, you just come with threats of we're going to fight any and all change. So I want to hear solutions and I want people to show up and I want to be part of the change that's good, the inevitable change. But I don't know if this is worth the fight. So I think we can call the question. Let's do it.
This is for the continuance, right?
Continuance. I have a no voted. Who hasn't voted? Oh, okay.
Sorry, let me go again.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
Let's do it again. Okay. Yes, Counselor Zelinski. Yes, Mayor Wusso. Yes, Counselor Zelinski. No, Mayor Wusso. No, Counselor Godis. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Dame. Yes, Counselor Weimer. Yes, Counselor Kaup. It passes 4-2.
Okay. We are going to keep having this conversation. And I would ask you to all be at the table. Encourage your neighbors to be at the table. Come with solutions. Come with an open mind. And let's see how we can work together to make a great community. Thank you. Let's move on. Yep, we're going to move on to the item 16 needs assessment report. Our Parks and Rec Director, Rod Tarullo. Oh, hey, Rod, do you mind if we take a quick break? Thank you. Where's she going? Stick with us. who is online watching, giving us just a moment to circle back.
Thank you.
Okay. Annexation.
Wait.
Okay, my mic is live,
Yes.
and I think we need the podium mic live. Okay,
Speak up. Everybody speak up.
Test, test.
you just take your time and let us know when you're ready.
Always gotta be.
Is that mic working?
Sometimes we have to like activate or something. Give me one moment, sorry.
Carl, other thing, is there anything that we have to do?
Is it working now?
I think we want to, but.
Yeah, no, the only one we have to is you're statutorily required to take action on the resolution.
Yeah.
The annexation, yeah, that's required.
Testing, 1, 2,
Got a gal waiting for us.
I'm wondering if I asked.
No, but there's nothing else.
Rural jumpstart. I
Let's
think
just
we
gloss
we
through it.
could
Yeah.
get this done. then we just gotta get it done.
Okay.
Does anybody have Starburst?
Hey.
You see my shoulder that.
Any more Starburst?
We're gonna get this done, we need some more candy.
The man would like to.
Really?
You want some? All right, I'll
Okay,
get you some.
Thank you.
I'll have one.
All right, I'll get you some.
Honestly, you know.
We're like children.
Like, you know, other than
Ryan,
the resolution.
we get Twizzler nibs too.
Okay.
Will I get what?
Twizzler nibs.
Ingrid,
Uh-huh.
Council, there's, Carl said that if we want, I don't know if we care, the only thing that we have to take action on tonight statutorily is resolution for the annexation.
Item 20.
Yeah, anything else we can
Okay,
pick, I don't
great.
know. The emergency operation traffic.
It's
management
only
plan-
8:30. We can
Yeah.
get this done.
We can get it.
Turn them into leaders. We don't have to, they don't have to.
Test, test.
I tried.
Shelley, I just threw out my whole 2 pieces of candy. This is number 5.
It should be, that should be fine. Okay.
Okay.
I don't know about jump start. I don't know about how long.
Test, test, test.
I mean, we
Yeah,
are.
that should be.
Got that.
Carol would know.
So don't-
Good.
Emergency operations. and traffic.
Hey, Steve. Ryan's mic working? We can talk into that one.
Do you guys want?
Yes.
Yeah, waiting for these, because I literally is a quick motion.
Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3.
All right. Madam Mayor, do we want to jump to item 20 while they're figuring it out, just to get it off the list?
For sure.
Testing,
Okay, so on April 21st.
Well,
Oh, now you're back.
The permanent record, we can't hear anything.
Oh.
When, can you hear somebody else? Did that work? Is the whole-
I'm checking.
We might be able to pull that forward.
Don't we have a secondary?
Oh.
I moved
Because we're
that
broken.
Carl buys
Oh, yeah, are we there? Yeah.
Did you make that motion? Madam Mayor, a point of order.
Yeah.
I move to continue every item on the agenda with the exception of item 20. Resolution of City Council for the annexation that complies with applicable statutory requirements and is considered eligible for such annexation.
We're good to do whatever.
Oh,
I think we just finally got.
okay. We're back up. Okay. Thank you all so much. We had some technical difficulties and we are also doing a little socializing after a land use hearing. So we are back in order. We've all had a snack.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna jump into, we are moving the resolution 2024-22, which is item number 20. And this is for a petition for annexation and setting a public hearing for June 20th, 2024.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a statutorily required action by council. On April 21st, an application was received, a complete application was received for annexation of a small parcel. It's exhibit to the resolution and the annexation petition. All you're doing tonight is confirming that what staff has confirmed is that the petition met all the statutory requirements and setting it for an initial hearing to determine if the property is in fact eligible for annexation, which will be held on the 20th. So literally, this is just a ministerial act that you have to check the box. You're required to do it statutorily.
Okay, and I want to confirm before we move on that there are no concerns with the timing of the application and the ballot A question.
No, a complete application was received the day before the election.
The day
Or
before
maybe
the
it was the 22nd. I'm sorry, I can't remember
Okay.
what day the election was. It was the Monday prior to the election.
Okay.
That it was
Okay.
received. And state statute requires certain steps to be taken with regard to that. So that's all we're doing.
Okay, great. Are there any questions from council? Open it to public comment. Is there anyone here that would like to discuss or comment on the application? Okay, I will bring it back to council. Councilor Dunn.
Thank you. In resolution 2024-22, resolution of the City Council of the City of Glenwood Springs, Colorado, finding substantial compliance of the petition for annexation, I move that we approve this resolution based on the information given.
I second the motion.
Okay, any discussion? Counselor Gotis.
Yeah, I know that it technically probably legally complies, but I think in light of 1A, I'll vote for this because it's administrative in nature and we'll hear the further application, but I think it's something that it's going to be tough to support given that the community voted that they want to have a voice in annexation.
Mhm.
But I will support this action tonight.
Yeah, I think it's challenging, but I think procedurally and from a charter amended position, the timing is such that, I mean, legal perspective.
Yeah, you're obligated to do this. I would also just note underneath even the charter changes, this process doesn't get affected. It's what happens at the end of it. So that's a ways from that.
Okay. Okay, then I guess I'll call the question. Mhm. Gosh, there we go.
It passes. It's unanimous.
Yeah.
Did you record the mayor's vote?
Did you record my vote? It was also a yes, but somehow my thing is not working all that fantastic tonight. So if you can just also record that my vote was also a yes.
Mayor Wusso's vote was also a yes.
Thank you. Okay, okay, so we did those.
My arms are too short.
Okay, I'm gonna get us all back on track. Thank you. And just confirm what items are we still anticipated to, should we have Rod jump in with needs assessment?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Sorry, and I think more than anything, we will just say thank you for your patience. He's like, I want to go home.
It is close to my bedtime. Rod Tarullo, Parks and Recreation Director, here tonight to talk briefly about the much requested and anticipated needs assessment for Parks and Recreation. We did speak at your workshop at your meeting 2 weeks ago and briefly tried to outline for you what the report and study is, how to read it, what kinds of data that it contains. For the benefit of the thousands of people watching at home, we had a invite survey where we received 681 surveys returned. And we had a separate open link survey at the same time, same survey, just not statistically valid. Another 560 of those surveys were returned. So a total of 1,241 surveys, which is outstanding and really commendable for our citizen engagement and involvement. This gave us a 3.63 margin of error on the statistically valid survey. And the information that we have acquired from everyone's generous offering of their time and their opinions is just, it's really exciting to see, and it will be really helpful for us as staff and for you as elected officials as we look at decisions and allocation of resources moving down the road in the next few years. For the benefit of all that you've had tonight and will yet have, I'm not going to spend much time on it. I would tell you that trails, open space, natural areas, parks, river access, restrooms, and the community center are all very popular facilities and amenities in our community. In regards to programs, special events like the 4th of July and wellness fitness programs are very, very popular. We had a question or two on cemeteries. Our citizens are telling us that they want us to continue to manage our 2 cemeteries, and there is not a large appetite to expand cemeteries to another property. Some of the most preferred future needs for the next 5 or 10 years are trails, parks, shade, and restrooms. In general terms, some of the topics that kept coming to the surface were the bathrooms in the parks, more hours at the community center. There were quite a few comments on dog items, pros and cons for increasing dog parks, taking better care of our dog park, having people pick up their dog waste, things like that. There were a handful of comments on Lone Pine. The survey went out at about the same time. You had a citizen come in and make some requests on that property, and that it was clear that you could see through the survey that had caught citizens' attention. The unhoused also appeared on several comments. We had about 500 open-ended comments where people wrote in what they liked, what they didn't like, and those are just valuable to us. We can learn a lot, and it gives us a lot of information that will help us make some decisions and priorities even on a daily basis. The parks themselves, there were a lot of people that praised what we have, a lot of good stuff. Some concerned citizens, and that's to be expected. I think we hit, out of a scale of 1 to 5, 3.7 with satisfaction from our citizens of the department as a whole, which is a good number. From this, we hope to build work plans. We've shared this with the Parks and Recreation Commission. We will be sharing it with the Arts and Culture Board. And then we have been working with our staff to review these documents and see what we can implement now, and then also prepare us for budget for next year and for CIP that's coming up. And so we will be using this document in that manner. It will be put up on the website so that every citizen has an opportunity to see it and study it and see if their comment got included, and I assure you they will. So that's kind of where we're at with it. On the open survey, there were special interest groups that put information in, and the largest of those were ice rink, pickleball, some athletic fields, and improvements to the skateboard park. There were 2 areas that were kind of Question marks for us, yeah, I think, Counselor Godus mentioned, last time the amount of homeowners versus renters is a little bit of a question mark for us. And then another one is on communications, and it asks where people get the most communications about parks and recreation. It said newspaper, and we're not sure that that was really an accurate number. And then also activity guide. We really haven't had an activity guide for a few years. We've got other products that go out that are flyers and things like that. So there was a little bit of a question on that question also. It was interesting that the citizens said that the way that they most preferred us to communicate with them was through emails. And so that was kind of eye-opening for us a little bit. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions, take any of your comments or input. If you have things that you'd like to share with us and you don't want to do it in a meeting setting, you know, pick up the phone, shoot me an email. We'd be happy for any input or observations that you have. Questions?
Counselor Godus.
Not a question, just a thank you. I think it's a great process. I think we need to, like you said, make sure that we're looking at, when we're looking at this, who completed the survey and make sure that those are, if there's a discrepancy between renters and homeowners that, and I doubt that there are a lot, but if there are, that we just kind of understand what those are enough. But thank you for doing this. I think it's a great tool for us to be able to make decisions and direct resources to the department in the future. I love what your staff is doing. The facilities are looking great. The programs are amazing. So thanks.
Thank you.
Counselor Weimer.
I would just say, echo that. Great job, Rod, like you and the whole team. Just curious, any surprises, any, ahas that came out of this survey?
I think the restrooms was a little bit of a surprise. I mean, we've known that they're aged and, but we didn't realize really how important they are to the citizenry. And a big part of that is just having them open all year. And most of these have been built long ago and have no method of being able to heat them in the winter. So we have to shut them down so they don't freeze and break. And so a little bit of it's education and a little bit of that is trying to look forward into the future as to how we can upgrade those or replace those to be able to provide a little bit more of a service. The one thing I'd say there though is for some of these things like the bathrooms and like extended hours at the community center, it takes more resource. And so that's a challenge for us.
Great job.
Thank you. I think that more than anything too, this is so in alignment with our Parks and Rec department, our Parks and Rec Commission, and your whole department in knowing and navigating as we move forward. So I appreciate the time and the energy that everyone put into it, and to the community members as well for taking the time to fill it out. So thank you, Rod.
You bet. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Rod.
Now you can go home. Okay, excellent. We have Storm King Fire 30-year anniversary update. Yay. I wondered, to be honest, I was like, why is he here still?
The last item too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm Doug Gerald, Deputy Chief for the Fire Department. Just a quick Storm King anniversary update for everyone to be aware of. It was tragic for the community, tragic for the fire service as a whole, right? And we acknowledge that. I am part of a working group that is planning the 30th anniversary. Just to let you know, we have set up an incident command structure to kind of make all that happen. It is a BLM and US Forest Service event, and they are the incident command team logistics. But long story short, the three main events, we were going to have a big trail maintenance day. We had over 100 firefighters, federal and local, from around the country who were going to come, basically do some trail work and restore and refresh some of the individual memorials that were up on the trail. That got canceled because of some really wet and snowy weather. We would have done more damage than we fixed. That has not been rescheduled yet. The other two big events are, let me take a step back. the incident command team really reached out to a lot of the survivors, the family members of the 14. And what they really wanted was, we want a low-key event that focuses really on remembering. And yet, on the people involved. So, and that's been the approach we're taking. So, back to the events, Friday night at New Creation Church on the 5th. Okay, it's going to be a big barbecue just for the family members, the survivors, and so on. Saturday morning, there's going to be a trail hike for those who are interested. Again, mostly focused on family members, survivors. We'll provide some paramedics on the trail, so on and so forth. But there's the incident command team and the federal PIO is handling all the outreach. And then on that Saturday afternoon at Two Rivers Park, and the Parks Department is replacing some trees to make sure we're honoring them the correct way. The Bureau of Land Management and U.S. Forest Service Honor Guard is going to lay a wreath. And it's just going to be an opportunity to visit and reflect. No speeches, not a lot of big to do, just a nice solemn event. So that is what's going on.
Could you make sure that you send us those dates and let us know any of the times that we would be welcome to join and celebrate both, you know, the people and the life that they gave us, and honor this, the service that they did.
Sure.
Thank you. Yeah. I was like, I'm looking down at you.
Thank
Like,
you.
what do you want to say?
Do you have any suggestions, or is there an opportunity for us as a city to offer a thank you to either some of the departments or the families, in the way of, I'm thinking maybe a dinner dedication, you know, a dinner to put on, or anything as a way for the community to say thank you? Because I remember that time, and when, you know, everybody was camped out in Two Rivers Park, and there was just a lot of activity, and the community came out and brought cookies and lunches and just all kinds of things. And I'm just wondering if there's a way to mark that 30th. It sounds like the city's not really a part of it, but is there a way they could do like a low key thing to just have it be a thank you?
Let me think about that and talk
Okay.
with the team about it.
Okay.
I think what the families kind of have a stomach for, so to speak,
Right.
it's kind of already being taken care of. I'm working with the Colorado Fallen Firefighters Foundation as far as helping financially support that evening cookout, because we may have well over 100
Okay.
attendees. Things like that don't come cheap.
Right. Okay.
You know, so I think events already taken care of. So I agree. We could maybe discuss some additional options of demonstrating that thanks, or
That-
showing that
right.
thanks as the city. So,
Okay. If you have an idea, that would be great.
okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. It is my understanding that the rural jumpstart has had to pop off. So Doug, if you wanted to stay up here, or Chief, if you guys, either one of you is doing emergency operations and traffic management. Yeah, we will. Just a minute. Thank you.
Good evening, Council, Madam Mayor, Joseph Jarris, the Acting Fire Chief. So my partner here, Chief Doug Jarrell, will be speaking specifically about, in very limited context, about some of the evacuation plans. I think the vast majority of that has already been shared with the council in those documents, and the contractor previously came in and provided a comprehensive report to you about what that looks like. I think tonight will be more of a high-level overview of informing the public about how they can access these documents. And before Chief Gerald takes the mic here, I'd like to share and encourage you and our community really to access the garco911.com system. So that is an alert system that they can go on there and they can sign up on that website. And so then they are notified of emergencies on their text, via text message on their cell phones. The other system that's in place is technology that's available to us where we can message anybody inside basically a geofenced area. So the moment somebody comes in their vehicle, comes into Glenwood Springs from any other direction, they're automatically pinged or hit with this emergency information. So again, the important piece here is that that signing up for that system. Mina Bolton is in the position to talk about home preparedness and clearing areas around homes to make those homes safe. And so there'll be more information about that available as well. But with that, I'd like to turn it over to Chief Gerald.
Yes, so Doug Gerald, Deputy Fire Chief. Yeah, so I'm here just to give a quick update on the emergency operations and traffic emergency management plan. You know, it's an all hazards, multidiscipline, kind of community-driven, lots of stakeholders approach to removing people from harm's way as quickly as we can. Everything from evacuation to reentry and everything in between. So that is a pretty large plan. Like Chief Darris was saying, our consultant, Rich Duran from EST, and I have both already given presentations to some extent to the council. So I'm not going to dig into that plan too much. I can certainly answer any questions as we go along. But what I wanted to do is kind of focus on some of the primary outcomes of the plan and the deliverables for emergency services, for the community, for you guys. So probably the primary deliverable, or not probably, one of the primary outcomes is the ability to more rapidly identify the need for and activate those emergency notifications to get people moving in towards safety. And one of the things we established, one of the big parts of this plan is we divided the city into district into 68 evacuation zones, primarily based on population density and some topographic features such as, hey, let's get this whole neighborhood. So what those 68 zones do is it allows an incident commander to, you can switch it if you want. I'm not even going to worry about the slide at this point. An incident commander with a quick reference guide that we built too could quickly identify, hey, evacuate zone 7014, and they just request with dispatch, hey, evacuate 7014, or it might be a hey, shelter in place, or pre-evacuate 7014. I'm not going to get into the specifics of why that's beneficial, but it makes it happen a lot more quickly. The plan also identified, well, I'm going to come back to evacuation routes. It makes it easier on the receiving end at dispatch, avoids the possibility of mistakes and transcription errors and everything else. So they have all this stuff in GIS form and they'll be like, copy that, we'll evacuate 7016, and they just hit a button, right? And then there's a translation happens that puts that into real world terms that people on the receiving end of those messages can understand. So it also allows for sequencing. So I might say, hey, can we evacuate 7014 right now? Let's put 7015 on pre-evacuation notice. Just a quick example. So it makes that a lot more streamlined. One of the other big deliverables of this plan is pre-identified evacuation routes and alternatives for each. So if you look at that map there, and this will be available to the public, they can hit the link if the link is working and zoom in, figure out what zone they live in. They can start to look at evacuation routes, so on and so forth. Another big outcome associated with those evacuation routes is we've been working hand in hand with a lot of stakeholders, including our Public Works Department, CDOT. We can identify evacuation routes all day long, but unless we control critical intersections, we all know what's going to happen. Everything's going to cinch down, traffic's going to stop moving. So another big item, we will dedicate resources, most likely Public Works, Streets Department, whatever available law enforcement there is, to help control those critical intersections, keep traffic moving the best that we can. I know there are going to be A-line break questions, and if you don't mind, we'll circle back to that. So other key things that I identified is areas of refuge along routes in case we can't keep people moving, some safe places they can go to on a short-term basis to be safe and protected. Sorry, I'm gonna flip my notes over here. Make sure I didn't miss anything. It pre-identifies evacuation centers. It takes into consideration perhaps the need for mass transportation. And we worked with RE1, kind of bus system, or how we can rely on their bus system, RAFTA, so on and so forth. And more importantly, it defines the roles and responsibilities of all those stakeholders. So Matt Langhorse and his street guys kind of know, okay, this is what I'm going to be asked to do. This is how I'm going to go do it. So it's a very thorough plan, but any good plan is useless unless we can put it into effect, put it into place. So some things that have already been going on with the communication center, we've been doing a lot of training. With emergency services, we've been doing a lot of training. We've had many discussions with Public Works and Streets, have many more upcoming discussions with all the big players at CDOT to make sure we can do our best. And probably one of the most important next steps is that public outreach, right? Because they have to know what's going on. So on purpose, we kind of did a soft rollout with this at our fire department open house this last Saturday, where I kind of approached community members if their kids happen to not be nearby, because that was very distracting for them, but kind of ran it by them, got some ideas. We will be working with Brianna on what outreach needs to look like to hit our various wards and part of the district, or all parts of the district. And during that, we'll take a little more time, open up these documents, show them where to find those documents, kind of walk through what it means to them in their part of the community. And something else we're going to do is we're going to take that opportunity while we have a captive audience to bring Mina in, and we're going to talk also about a lot of mitigation stuff, a lot of prevention, a lot of planning, preparedness for wildland, things like that. We might use the opportunity to roll out a new process we're going to use for home inspections, where we actually come out and say, hey, you can do this, you can do that, you can do that to harden your home in case of a wildfire. So yeah, lots of public outreach still needs to happen. Another thing we're going to do is get with the Chamber of Commerce and say, for example, if you're staying at the Residence Inn and you get this evacuation notice, the first thing they're going to do is walk down into the lobby and say, hey, front desk clerk, what in the heck does this mean? So we're going to do our best to kind of educate some of those businesses as well, so they can help our visitors if needed.
Excellent.
Okay. Questions before I go into the A-line breaks? And I'm sorry, I went through that quick. I think brevity is appreciated at the moment.
You're picking up, but you're definitely picking up.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of quick questions. Is this all related to the Garfield County traffic incident management, kind of? Like all that coordination we talked about with
all of our plans are associated.
So those are all mixed together. Okay. I trust you guys on that. Just asking. And then I think the neighborhood outreach, how many zones did you say there were?
68 zones, but that includes the district as well.
Okay. So that's outside of city.
And a handful of those zones have no people in them.
Okay, right.
But we want to be able to still evacuate them if need be with iPause messaging, and we won't get into the details.
Okay.
But yeah.
I'm really glad. I think our public will very much appreciate the outreach, especially going into fire season. So however you can get into those neighborhoods and just make people feel good that there's a plan in place. I really appreciate that. Thank you. And then my only other question was, what, what methods are in place to ensure that the plan stays current as the years go by and staff turns over? And is there like an annual check-in, or is it just an ongoing thing, or how does?
Almost
that work?
everything we do is on. We
Okay.
do something called after action reviews. So we have an incident, regardless of which plan would have been affected or guided what we do. We take a look at what did we do right? What could we have done better? Do we need to adjust? Do we need to train? Do we need to re-educate? So this
So
plan
the
is really no
continual-
different than any of our others.
Okay. I'm just coming from the city kind of side where we do a lot of plans and sometimes they just get put.
And plans on a shelf don't work for
They don't
emergency
do much,
services,
right?
So
Okay,
we get it. Yeah.
thank you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate that.
Chief?
Yeah, and did you want to talk about A-line breaks? Okay, yeah.
So I just want to interject here and say that, plans like kind of what we just spoke to are really only good as long as we're on top of them and right, and we have constant revision and constant review. But I think that these plans, from a city's perspective, it's important. I think our overarching message here to you is that one, we had a lot of money invested in this plan and time and resources for sure. But as a city, our constituents and our obligation to the community is that we, public safety professionals, are prepared to execute these plans. We practice these plans. So they're not just some, document on a shelf somewhere. And the reality of it is the bulk of our community is not going to go on here and read about this until it becomes a problem. Then it's a problem, right? So in the interim, I just want you to have faith in the staff here, all of the departments, under Steve's leadership, that we practice these plans, we go through them, identify resources that are needed, and really specifically those evacuation routes. That's really what it's going to come down to, is getting large volumes of people out of this community at a very rapid pace is really the very bottom line of this, right? So we're asking people to look at it, and we have 911, all of these other things, and some of these codes may not mean a lot to you as staff members about how we execute these plans. But at the end of the day, we just need you to feel very confident in the professionals that contributed to this plan, and that we do have something and we're ready to deal with that should it, present itself. Is that fair?
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Any questions? Okay. E-line breaks. Woo.
So we can make this quick. The one in West Glenwood by the car dealerships, you've probably seen this random piece of fence up. It's all ready to go. The one over by the old Toyota dealership, my understanding, and Ryan can chime in here if he wants, is our big holdup with getting that one completed is actually finding a traffic control company for a day.
Oh,
Yeah. But once they get that traffic control company, actually getting it set up should not take very.
Okay.
I will tell you, accessing those will not be done lightly. As you can imagine, there's a lot of coordination.
Sure.
It's already making CDOT very nervous. I have meetings with them next week, right? So Unified Command is going to be very thoughtful and precise about the decisions they make when to open those A-line breaks. Because you can imagine traffic on I-70 pretty much has to have already come to a stop before we do that. We might create an incident within an incident of something catastrophic happening on the interstate. And that's a good tie-in with how does this interact with other plans? We would have to activate the Garfield County Traffic Incident Management Plan. Maybe we've closed I-70 at Dot Zero and Newcastle by that point in time. So, yeah, so that's the real quick rundown on the A-line breaks.
Thank
Perfect.
you. That's perfect. Just out of curiosity, are there any other A-line breaks on I-70 in the state? Ryan?
Not that I'm
Anyone?
aware.
No?
Really?
We're number one.
Yeah.
I know. Totally. We're number one and number two.
Let's
Setting
talk
precedent.
about why we need them.
Yeah, exactly. Let's not talk about why we need them, but thank you. Thank you
welcome.
for all the hard work that goes into this. And I think everyone feels a sigh of relief knowing that it's in place, and hopefully we never have to use it. Thank you.
Okay. Chiefs. Thank you.
Okay. I am going to go to report from city. Oh, let's do this really quickly. We did have resolution 2024-16 rural jumpstart program. Unfortunately, because of our tech challenges and a few other issues this evening. We are going to have to move that. The presenter was unable to stay online, so we're moving that to a future meeting. I don't know exactly which one. We'll have to work with the facilitator from that program. I don't know that we need a motion. No, it's not like a resolution or an ordinance, so.
It is a resolution.
Oh,
Yeah.
but not, sorry, thank you. It's more,
It's out of our.
okay, thank you.
Mayor
Then we're gonna-
Wusso?
yeah.
You moved 3 Mile, the RFP 3 Mile to right here?
Yep, thank you. Thanks for that reminder. Okay. Steve?
Yeah, I can take that one. So we had an award, an RFP award for the 3 Mile project on the agenda. We need to award it to the vendor that we want to negotiate with. But to do that, we have to actually award it and appropriate the funds. It's over budget significantly. So we're going to work with them to see if we can get within the budget that we talked about last year. So we're not making a project decision. Once we have a project, we'll bring it back to you and you guys can give us some direction on what to do.
That was.
Hold on.
That was my question. Thanks. So are we kind of awarding it for the 800 some odd thousand that we have the money for?
Yeah, that's what
And
we're
then-
going to appropriate and that's going to be kind of the top end of the budget and we'll see
Okay.
if we can get in underneath it.
And we are choosing a specific contractor name? It wasn't in the memo or anything, and that's why nope, and it wasn't in the work session last week, so.
Yeah, I apologize for the oversight. So, Ryan Gordon, the city engineer. So, the low bid was Frontier, Environmental,
Okay.
based out of Denver. They were, one of the 2 low bidders that we received last year. And we've been negotiating and talking with them, since, and they're working with us to revise the bid, to rise the cost, bringing it under budget.
Okay, and what's the kind of budget number we're awarding tonight, just for public clarity?
We're going to appropriate around 800.
Okay, about
And,
800,000.
and to clarify, we have $310,000 in existing grants from CWCB. So the delta, would come from the city.
Okay.
About $585,000.
Okay, thank you. That's just the clarity that I was hoping for. Thanks.
Okay. Counselor Godus.
I move that we appropriate the 895,000 for the total project budget.
500.
What?
Councilor Godus, the appropriation from the city would be, it's late, sorry,
85.
$510,000, no. Is that right?
No, we have to appropriate both the grant, anything we spend.
Yeah,
So
895 is what the project budget
Yeah,
is.
That's
Let's do
the
that.
budget.
So my motion stands. I
Yep.
move that we appropriate the $895,000 for the awarding the RFP, the 2023 11P for the 3 Mile Creek Confluence Project to Frontier Environment.
Second.
We're not appropriating funds tonight, right?
we're appropriating the funds so that we can have these conversations, but we're not approving a project.
I'm glad we pulled that off consent. There was obviously some questions.
Yes.
So thank you.
I need to
you
change
for
my motion?
Clarifying.
No.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We are going to move on to report from City Manager Steve Boyd.
Thank you. Just a couple of quick things. We have been approached by Hotel Colorado. They do a lighting ceremony every year. I don't know if you guys were checked in with last year. Last year's the first year they started taking donations and our city manager gave them $5,000 at the time, which made us a gold sponsor. It was kind of the top level. This year they have a higher level that they're calling, I think, presenting sponsor. It's $10,000 and they say we're kind of a co-host of the event. That would be an option for us. They had that last year, something similar to it. It was Alpine Bank. There's only one, but we could do that. It's not a lot of money, but the reason that I wanted to get you guys, if this is an easy decision, fine. It's a for-profit business that we're co-hosting something with, so we're trying to be careful about that. If we need it on a work session, that's fine. If everybody says, yeah, go do it, that's fine. I just don't want to be more than a 20-second conversation.
Counselor Zelinski.
Would that be something appropriate to go through the FAB board or no?
It would be, we would have to ask them to file an application or put an application in. There are FAB dollars available, but the exception we'd have to make is they missed the deadline.
What about the fact that they're not a nonprofit?
And that's an issue too.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, that's why I was wondering, that's why I asked, because I
So
wasn't
they
sure if
missed the
that was where
deadline and
that
they're not a
goes.
nonprofit. Okay, Counselor Godus.
I think that almost everybody, I think everybody in FAB is on the grant award committee. So I guess I'd be supportive, even if they just came back as, hey, we don't fund it or whatever, or it's a good community event, like this is why stuff goes through them and then they can get a recommendation back to us. That would be my suggestion. That we just put it on, it's Christmas, so maybe the next regular scheduled agenda for the FAB board to consider.
I think they had an emergency meeting last night, or not an emergency, but a special meeting last night. So yeah, it would have to be the next regularly scheduled.
Well, they did last night, and we haven't actually voted in FAB on a recommendation. So conceivably, I could send this out to FAB and see what they think. But Mayor Wusso is right. This is a for-profit entity, and that kind of disqualifies them from the
Yeah,
financial advisory board level.
I think I'd like to just hear a motion from someone.
I'd make a motion that we do not support granting money to for-profit organizations as per our financial advisory board guidelines to be consistent with.
I second that.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Oh, nothing. Let's do this then. If there's discussion, let's, gosh, here we were ready to just move that, shall we? And
We
then
can
your
put it
little-
onto a work session or next week. I mean, it's not urgent. It doesn't happen till November.
I think it's, I think we're ready to take a vote. There's a motion and a second. Let's just go ahead and take it. I appreciate what they do for the community. I will not be supporting, like, funding it. So I'll be passing the.
Shit, wrong
so-
button.
Yeah, the motion was to deny.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ryan, that was not
Okay,
good.
let's do this one more time, Ryan.
The motion is to deny.
The motion is to deny.
You were right.
It's too long.
Okay.
Yes, Counselor Zelinski. Yes, Mayor Wusso. Yes, Counselor Godus. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Dame. Yeah, no, Counselor Weimer. No, Counselor Cowpit. Passes 4-2.
Okay.
Thank you.
you.
Appreciate it.
The only other little thing, we have a bill due for annual dues from AGNC, Associated Governments of Northwest Colorado. I don't know who is going to those meetings or not.
I'm going to jump in on that one. I'm going to say that I appreciate what they do. However, we do not have an ambassador or a liaison from council who is an active member. And so I think in this case, I don't usually make motions, but I'm going to make a motion that we do not fund that and stay involved in that organization simply because we're not active. So,
And I would second that.
okay. All those in favor? Discussion. Let's be part of discussion. Let's do it. Counselor Weimer.
And I'm the guy,
Mhm.
but should we become active or should we stop? Or should we cut financial ties? Like, what's the right thing to do?
So let's do this. On this one, if there's any interest in any question, some of us are familiar with the organization and.
And I don't
obviously
know, and if you guys
someone-
know better than I do. then-
Yeah, well, yeah,
Right?
yeah. Yeah, Jonathan, say something.
I think, to be fair, that I've
We're messy
asked,
tonight.
why start now? But I think, I've asked for a conversation on all kinds of groups that we are members of, that we are not, and have not been active participants in. If we cannot contribute to an organization in a meaningful way, if that organization does not contribute to us and our values are not aligned, I'm not even saying AC&G. We are also members of Club 20. We are also members of other organizations that members 2 or 3 councils ago kind of liked for a little bit. And so now we're still paying those bills. And I don't know, this is, again, it's not a comment on AC&G. It's a comment on all of those. But I think if we do not have somebody who's an active member, which we do not, if we do not bring value to the organization or that bring that value back to the council, I don't know why we'd be a member of that group or other outside groups. And I think it's a larger conversation, but the fact there's a bill that needs to be
Yeah.
paid now, it brings kind of this conversation to the forefront.
I also think, to Jonathan's point, we have regular discussions about the general fund and a lot of little money that trickles out. It's similar to a household budget, and all of a sudden you ask your kids, do we have Hulu, Netflix, Amazon Prime, Apple TV? Like, the reality is it's very easy to all of a sudden accrue $100,000 in memberships and expenses that I think we need to be more fiscally responsible for. And so if no one is representing this crew, and to Jonathan's point, I'm happy to talk to you more about the organization. If we, yeah, go ahead. You're on. Oh, I thought you were still on. Okay.
The other thing is specific about this is the COGs, councils of governments across the state, of which I'm an employee of one, contractor, excuse me. We're already a member of Northwest COG. So it's odd that we duplicate. I don't know of any other community that is members of two separate COGs. So there's a duplication as well. I just thought that was an important
This
piece.
isn't Northwest Cogs,
No,
so I'm not the guy.
no. Right?
I'm the Northwest Cogs guy,
Yeah.
supposed to be. I'm not, but I'm
I know.
supposed
Thank
to.
you for your participation.
I do what I can. So what organization is this, Steve?
Associated Governments of Northern Colorado.
Of Northern.
I kind of wish the audio was still not working. I'm gonna call for the question.
And the question is to not
Do
pay them.
not pay them. Not pay them.
Was there?
We have to like.
Yeah, there's a motion.
Okay.
We can call the question.
It's unanimous. It passes.
Okay, thank you. Thank
Okay,
you all.
I think everything else can wait. Sorry to smuggle a couple
Within
discussions
it
onto
might
the,
be a good idea. Yeah,
thank you.
okay.
Yeah, I only need 3 motions. I'm kidding.
Okay.
I have nothing tonight.
Okay, great. Okay, I will come back to council comments then. Council comments. You're on. Do you want to? Counselor Dim.
Thank you. Oh, don't touch it. So Counselor Zelinski and myself met with the Historical Society, I think it was Monday morning, to have a brief discussion about the brand new hot off the press, the strategic plan that they came. Oh, she has a copy.
Whoa.
It has been formed, it's done, it's written, it's awesome. And they would like to be on the agenda to present their plan. And I'm looking for a second to either put them on the 1st June or the 2nd June agenda.
I would like to second.
Okay.
Okay,
great.
can we do that?
All those in favor of putting it on?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great.
Staff discretion on first or second?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Mhm.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, great.
The Historic Museum Strategic Plans on the 1st June work session.
Okay.
No, okay, let me rephrase this.
Yeah.
Please. I don't personally think we need a work session. I think we can go straight to the dais.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Counselor Kell.
Council's had an update on this, but this came up in our Transportation Commission meeting last time, that it sounds like the parking enforcement license plate readers are in, and that they will be going live in June. Am I misspeaking?
Summer test.
Okay. Is
So,
that true?
I'm sorry, you want me to confirm that for you?
Sure.
Yeah, I think you're right there. I don't have
Okay.
a specific date.
It's kind of
This
a
week,
pi-
we've had several meetings with the vendor,
Great.
quite a bit of training involved in that.
Okay.
There is some hardware that we have to have our cities, the staff make available, our shops and stuff for them to come out and put those in before we can actually start effectuating those citations.
And will that mainly just be in the downtown area, kind of the?
Primarily, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Mhm.
great to hear.
Thank you. And may I add that our parking, if you check our website, we've actually talked on there about parking enforcement is, we're back. It's never gone away.
Okay.
It's always been here, but now we have a parking enforcement officer during the summer months, much like we had last year. So that parking enforcement program is just off the ground. It's pretty robust.
Great, great. Good,
Yeah.
good. Thank you very much, Chief. And then, just looking, I don't think I have anything else from my commissions and boards and, just to remind council, I will not be here at the first meeting in June.
Okay, thank you. I also believe that Counselor Schachter is also missing that meeting. So
That's correct.
please let me know if for some reason you are not going to be able to be at that first meeting in June. Okay, just to make sure. Thank you. Okay, Counselor Zelinski.
Thank you. Okay, so on Tuesday, I was able to volunteer to do some work with Roaring Fork Outdoor Volunteers in collaboration with the City of Glenwood Springs Parks Department to do some just like maintenance and just tidying up and work up at Linwood Cemetery, also known Doc Holliday Cemetery, Pioneer Cemetery. It's got a lot of different names, but it was fun. It was a great turnout. We had beautiful weather. Got a lot done. Like I was really impressed. That was the first, it was the second scheduled, but the first one got weathered out. So that was the first in a series of, I believe, 3 work sessions. So next Tuesday, the 28th or 21st, we're meeting. And then again on June 4th, I believe it is the reschedule of the first one. So if anybody is interested in joining me, I am personally really invested. I used to be on the board of Roaring Fork Outdoor Volunteers, and I've been volunteering with them for more than 20 years. And so it's the second time I've actually worked at Linwood Cemetery. And so it's great. It was a great group of people. I got to meet some new people, see familiar faces. It's super gratifying. So I encourage you to come and join us if you're interested or have the free time.
Okay. Any other additional comments?
I have one real quick. We have our 3 finalists for fire chief coming in next week. On Monday between 5:30 and 7, we're having an open house at the rec center. So we'll notice it. Please come by and kick the tires if you can.
Tuesday?
Monday.
Monday. Okay, thank you. I'll put that in my calendar.
Thank you.
Okay. Perfect. Council social event notice.
Sure.
Oh, are you?
You get it.
I wanted to say I'm sorry I'll be out of town Monday, so I'll miss the Southbridge thing and this, but I also wanted to say that council will reconvene afterwards at Docks.
Okay, thank you. And I'll bring it back to council for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
And a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And thank you all for attending this evening, and we appreciate your patience for a lot of it.